All right, good evening, everybody. And just so the public knows, we're aware that TV screen is out. We apologize. If they can get it to magically work, they will, but I'm not sure they're going to be successful with that this evening. So Suzanne, let's go ahead and start with roll call.
Mayor LaBarre,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Case,
Here, thank you.
Councilmember Connors,
Here.
Councilmember Nakai,
Here.
Councilmember Neal,
Here.
Councilmember Ott,
Here.
Councilmember Zulawaga.
Here.
Thank you.
Also quickly, Councilmember Case, remember to just chime in because I don't see you and I may not remember.
Thank you, Mayor.
And to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, we're starting tonight with item 3A, and we do have Councilmember Ott and Zulawaga as presenters. And I was going to make a recommendation to them. They have a slideshow of definitions that I wasn't aware how many there were until recently. And our presentations are typically limited to 5 minutes. And so I've asked them if they would like to consider either moving the item, somebody have to make a motion and you would move the item to 8A to the item on agenda. So you are not limited to the 5 minutes. Or you can move it to public hearing if we've managed to make it there this evening. And we could begin with that on the evening of public hearing. So it's whatever you guys would like to make a motion for.
I'll make a
how you'd
motion
like
to
do
move it to 8A.
To 8A, and we'll do it when council discusses. We'll start it off
second
with that.
it.
I'll second.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Rusty was going to.
Oh, you seconded it?
I second it.
Oh, fine, okay.
Okay, so Suzanne, did you catch that?
Yeah, so let's just take a quick vote. LaBarre,
Yes.
Case,
Yes.
Connors,
Yes.
Nakai,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Zulawaga.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, so then we're going to move on to item number 4, additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda. And we have none.
No, we do.
Oh, we do have one.
Yeah, I will start by saying there were a couple of typos that were brought to my attention, but they're nothing of substance. But Councilmember Neal does have a correction that he shared with me and I asked him to share out loud.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'll do it now. In the minutes from last session, under the item 4, additions, deletions, or corrections to agenda, where we correctly captured Councilmember Ott made a motion to move item 8A to 4A and to table. He had combined the two. That is correct. But then Ms. Williams clarified that it would have to be 2 motions. If the first motion to move it succeeded, then a second motion could be made to table it.
And I know you're
So-
looking at me, Mayor. I understand what he's
Okay.
saying.
I'm going to give it to her. She knows it. The minutes capture the motion, the final first motion was to move item 8A to 4A and table this initial posting. The words "and table this initial posting" needs to be removed because that was not the actual motion that we voted on. It
Good
started the
catch.
discussion.
And I
not
agree
the
with,
action.
I agree with that, Mayor.
Okay, very good. That's clarified. That's it.
That was it.
Good. Okay. So then
We need a motion to approve the amended minutes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Who seconded that?
Kelly.
Kelly?
Oh, thank you. Case,
Yes.
Connors,
Yes.
Nakai,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Zulawaga.
Yes.
LaBarre.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we are on to consent calendar 5A, approval of the October 20th, 22 council meeting minutes.
We just
We just did that.
Oh, we just did it.
She got
I'm-
two.
I'm awake.
Suzanne said you
Okay, so off to 6, and I don't have a sign up list.
Okay, I
Um,
have it here
okay.
and there's nobody signed up for anything that's not on the agenda.
Okay, how about online?
No.
Okay, very good. 7, unfinished. We have none. All right, and we have item 8A. And we have our planning director who will present the initial posting, but just so the public is aware this evening, I am taking public comment, but I'm doing it opposite of how Mayor Pro Tem Case did it. I'm going to allow council to have discussion first. And then I will take public comment because I think that allowing council to have discussion, there are amendments that are going to be brought forward. And I'd like the public to be able to hear those before they make their comments, because I think it will help clarify some comments and clarify some information for you ahead of time. And also, if you had the opportunity to comment last time, of course, you're still welcome to come up. But if you have something new to say, that would be much appreciated rather than a repeat of what you said last time. I know that all council was present. And I watched the meeting, and I know the meeting was available to the public to watch as well. That's been recorded. I'm not saying not to come up, but I'm just saying if you have something new to introduce, that would be much appreciated rather than something that had been repeated. If you have something you wanted to repeat, though, that's fine. I understand. So, but I do think having council's discussion ahead of comment will help the public to understand better what's happening with the ordinance. So.
Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to clarify that I did look to the council for any discussion that they had before we did ask for public comment. So the council was given the opportunity to comment, to have discussion before public.
That's
comment.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that. So with that, if our planning director, Karen, would like to. Come on up.
Good evening. Okay, maybe it's just very loud, so. Yeah, good evening. For your consideration this evening, this is first reading of an ordinance. In your packet was a fairly lengthy staff report trying to summarize all of the background information and how we got to this point. Specifically, this relates to regulating short-term rentals, which I've been trying to explain as the renting of either a part of a dwelling unit or the whole dwelling unit for less than 30 consecutive days. Over the course of many months now, we've gone through a variety of public engagement activities and received comment from the community about their thoughts and ideas that they would like to see considered. And from all of that, the Planning Commission, after a joint work session with City Council, was tasked with preparing that draft ordinance. They have since conducted the hearing that they're required to with regard to that hearing. And so in front of you this evening is their recommendation. So the ordinance that they are bringing forward to you is the goals are to protect residential integrity and community character within the city, adopt licensing regulations and restrictions on the renting or leasing of real property for an occupancy of less than 30 days, ensure clarity, increased enforcement, fairness, and consistency with the goals of the city for its residents, businesses, and customers. And then looking to protect or seeing this as necessary for the health, safety, and welfare of the public and to prevent adverse impacts to adjacent properties, neighborhoods, and quality long-term rental housing units within the city. So within the body of the ordinance, there's proposed language that includes definitions necessary to clarify what a short-term rental is. Those would be in both Titles 5 and 18. There's standards for who can obtain a license for a short-term rental business. Establishment of caps on the number of short-term rental units by zoning district with the proposed percentages matching the current percentages of licensed short-term rental units. Provisions for a waiting list for licenses, provisions for a designated local contact person, no short-term rental license required if renting a portion of your primary residence while you are occupying the residence during the rental period. There are provisions for renewing or revoking a license as well as penalties. Short-term rental licenses are non-transferable. The use is clearly identified within the zoning regulations and includes definitions. It identifies the locations where short-term rental may be permitted in the table of uses and prohibits short-term rentals in multifamily zones. There are standards for the use, including prohibited structures, occupancy limits, parking spaces required, and the separation between short-term rental units. And then finally, there's transitional provisions in section 7 of the proposed ordinance. Also want to note for you, I'm sure you're keenly aware that there is currently a moratorium on the issuance of business licenses for short-term rentals that will run through December 16th of 2022. So with that, consistent with the process spelled out in our city regulations, I have for you, for your consideration and a recommendation to move to approve for initial posting ordinance 1431 series 2022. An ordinance amending Title 5 and 18 of the Woodland Park Municipal Code concerning business regulations and zoning to license and regulate short-term rentals and set the public hearing for November 17th, 2022.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Please listen to it real carefully. I think I've captured what everybody wants. I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 1431, series 2022 with the following amendments. Number one, strike subsection 5.22.020L as follows and re-letter succeeding subsections accordingly. The L, just in brief, is the paragraph dealing with the 500 foot and 250 foot. Okay. Second, to strike subsection 18.78.050B8 as follows. And this would be the one that talks about no short-term rental unit within the SR zoning districts shall be located within 500. It follows. Number three, amend section 7 as follows. Forgive me, folks, we got a long tutorial from the lawyer how to do this. I'm trying to procedurally do this in a streamlined manner that will facilitate the discussion going forward, but I have to read these. Section 7, the current business license operating short-term rental businesses, period. The first 2 months after the effective date of this ordinance, if the number of short-term rental business licenses applications submitted exceed the cap imposed by the ordinance, the city shall process applications from current and valid business license holders operating a short-term rental business first before processing other short-term rental business license applications. Striking, provide a current and valid business license holder operating a short-term rental business applies for a short-term rental business license application within 2 months of the effective date of this ordinance. The distance restrictions within section 5.22.020L and 18.78.050B8 shall not apply to such new short-term rental business license application and subsequent renewals for the same short-term rental unit. Then inserting, provided a current and valid business license holder operating a short-term rental business in the MFS or MFU zoning district applies for a short-term rental business license application within 2 months of the effective date of this ordinance. The prohibition of short-term rental businesses in the MFS or MFU zoning districts shall not apply to such new short-term rental business license applications and subsequent renewals for the short-term rental unit and by the same license holder. Number 4, amend 5.22.020K as follows. K, the following units, structures, or uses shall be prohibited from operating short-term rental businesses or from receiving short-term rental business licenses, striking the words accessory dwelling units, ADUs. And then allowing the rest of it to stand: rental apartment units, apartment buildings, dormitories, bed and breakfast establishments, campgrounds, RV parks, hotels, motels, mobile homes and recreational vehicles, RVs, which include all vehicles that bear a vehicle identification number, VIN, and inserting cabins and other structures without installed water, power, or sewer facilities. And then continuing with what was there: tents, teepees, campers, and other temporary structures. Next, to amend 18.78.050 as follows. Short-term rental units are not permitted in, we will strike the words accessory dwelling units, ADUs. And then leave the rest of it saying bed and breakfast establishments, dormitories, campgrounds, RV parks, hotels, motels, mobile homes, and recreational vehicles, RVs, which include all vehicles that bear a vehicle identification number, VIN, and then inserting the words cabins and other structures without installed water, power, or sewer facilities. And then the remainder of the sentence remains the same: tents, teepees, campers, and other temporary structures at the time in any zoning districts.
Councilmember Neal, I
Yes.
just wanted to mention that there's a typo in the citation of that subsection. Instead of 1878.050B8, it's 1878.050B2.
I stand corrected,
Just
and
noticed
my
that.
motion should reflect that change to A2. Next, to amend subsection 5.22.030C4 as follows. Within the last 12 months, there has been, striking the words no more than one, and inserting two or more violation, adding the plural, adding an S, violations of the provisions of this chapter, this title, Title 18, this code, or any other law or regulation pertaining to the requirements of the application, or at the short-term rental unit, property, or any of the terms pertaining to the short-term rental business license over the past year. Next, to amend subsection 5.22.030C5 as follows. Within the last 12 months, there have been, but this is for consistency, strike no more than one, inserting two or more violation, plural. In a 12, yeah, it stays within the last 12 months. That stays in. No, I'm trying to hold it up so you can see the words of any short-term rental business license or application requirements, or there have been, striking the words no more than one and inserting two or more violations, inserting the letter S, so it's plural, of the Good Neighbor guidelines listed on the short-term rental business license or application materials created by the city manager and their designees and updated from time to time. Next, to amend subsection 18.78.050A1 as follows. All short-term rental units shall comply with chapter 5.22 of the Woodland Park Municipal Code, which establishes conditions under which a property owner may apply for a short-term rental business license, inserting the words except for the exceptions set forth in section 5.22.020N. And then amend section 18.09.090 table of uses as follows. Under paragraph L, which is lodgings, add a paragraph 4 entitled short-term rental units in accordance with chapter 5.22 and section 18.78.050. And under the following columns, SR, insert PC. Under UR, insert PC. Under AG, insert PC. Under NC, insert PC. Under CC, insert PC. Under SC, insert PC. Under CBD, insert PC. Under PUD, insert PC. And lastly, and again, forgive me, folks, I'm doing this procedurally as best we can to
Excuse
go
me.
through this legally.
Karen,
I apologize for interjecting. I just wanted to clarify, the only change to that table in that list that you just read from what is in the ordinance as drafted is the addition of the PC in the AG column.
Okay,
Otherwise, the
that's right.
others all stand.
Okay,
So
I stand corrected on the others.
Just-
They already exist.
thank you.
Thank you, Karen. The last is to amend section 5.22.020H as follows. In the event the maximum number of licensed short-term rental units for a zoning district has been met, no new applications for short-term rental units will be accepted for that zoning district. A City of Woodland Park short-term rental business license application waiting list for short-term rental units in each of the applicable zoning districts shall be annually prepared and maintained by the city clerk. In each such waiting list, applications for short-term rental units located at an owner's primary residence, inserting the words which do not fall under the exceptions set forth in subsection N. And then the remainder of the paragraphs is as written, shall be given priority over short-term rental units which are not the owner and applicant's primary residence. New short-term rental business licenses, once available, will be processed and issued based on the ability of the applicant to comply with all applicable conditions and requirements in this chapter 5.22 and within Title 18. On initial posting, an ordinance amending titles 5 and 18 of the Woodland Park Municipal Code concerning business regulations and zoning to license and regulate short-term rentals and set the public hearing for November 17th, 2022. That is the end of my motion.
Mayor, I will second.
Can we have one more amendment? We just spotted that it says these will be maintained in the city clerk's office. I think we're going to change that. Yeah.
okay,
Sorry,
So
folks,
Robert,
we just saw that.
Just saw it and I'm like, my office?
So my apologies, section 5.22.020 licensing limitations and requirements. Session H. We would ask the council consider replacing a reference to the city clerk in the middle of that paragraph to the finance department.
Excuse me, I apologize. I need to interject on that and I need Mr. Wilson to potentially weigh in. We talked about that at length at the Planning Commission. And the feedback we received from legal counsel at that point in time was under state law, the way things are structured, the city clerk is kind of the catch-all for that administration. Now, what we do internally, logistically to make it happen is a little bit different.
So typically when we do that, we put city clerk or designee. And other things that we have where the state dictates it be in the city clerk's office, we always put city clerk or designee. Because otherwise this does not let me
Yeah.
change that.
It was my understanding that legally finance department was like not a technical option, was what the direction we were given. So. Okay. So my apologies.
No, it's good. Thank you for that clarification, Karen.
So Suzanne, did you need Rusty to say as amended by city director for the motion, or you're good?
We're good. Okay,
Okay,
between Jeff and I and Rusty, I think Jeff, myself, Rusty, we have this captured.
okay.
Correct? We have the amendments captured.
I'm sorry. I was trying to find it.
We don't need to repeat this motion. We have this all
Right.
captured between myself, you and
Yes.
Rusty.
Yes.
Okay, so
And-
Kelly seconded it.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am, I did.
okay. So we can either have discussion or take a vote.
Well, before, yeah.
But there is
yeah,
a
let's-
motion
Let's have
on
a,
the
dis-
table.
let's have a discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so who would like to start?
I can start with, as Rusty presented, there were two things I didn't, well, I don't, sorry, I don't know where it is in the code, but somewhere in this ordinance, it specifies that owner occupied do not fall under the taxable regulation, which I believe they should, or they should. So we should add that,
Okay,
do you-
we need to find that.
yeah.
So
So Jeff, can you find that for me? It's,
So
Well,
the
it
tax, I
does-
think the tax code covers that because. it
well, the
talks
tax
about
code covers it,
lodging.
but this is actually excluding it. So
Oh, I see.
we're,
Specifically.
yeah,
I
yeah.
see. I get you, Catherine. Thank you.
With lodging and license, or just, or? I
The original language that it's the lot, when we had this discussion and we created this, one of the consensuses was that owner occupied didn't have to pay lodging tax because it was, and that's going to interfere with our code for the lodging tax code. So we need to strike that and make sure that owner occupied has to pay lodging tax. I just don't know where it is in here. You would think I would, but
As the second, I have no problem with that being part of our motion.
Okay,
Rusty, you?
Yeah, I have no problems with what you're asking.
yeah, we just have
need
to find it. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And then the other one was on ADUs. Our code allows for an ADU to be, or we have a very long ADU code, and one of them states that you can STR or do whatever you want with your ADU so long as the primary residence is the primary residence. So you can't STR the house and the ADU. And so this is also in conflict with the code. So I would maybe suggest that we put in here, ADUs are allowed based on the existing code.
sure. Yeah, it has to stay
It
consistent.
has to stay consistent, yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
And as far as what everything else has been said, for now, I'm fine.
and that was the ADUs
It was
are
the
allowed to be an
related-
STR if the
Yeah,
primary
residence is,
resident is
is-
the owner of the
right,
property.
right. And you guys had some amendments
Yeah.
you wanted to go through, so.
Well, wait, hang on one
We-
second. Like,
We have a motion and a second
Guys.
on the floor.
Karen has a question.
Well, before you moved on to something else, we had that question hanging out there with regard to the renting of a room while you're in the property. So I didn't know if you wanted to go back to that provision or
The
not.
the tax one, did you find?
I believe I did.
Okay, which one is it?
It's under 5.22020 N as in November. And I don't
Correct.
think it excludes that person from collecting the lodging tax. I believe it's meant to exclude them from some of the other standards that are required to be met.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody's equal on the taxing of how they use the use.
So are we amending that just so I know?
Well, no, if what Karen is saying is correct, then, and is
Leave
fine
it
as
as
that
is.
is, and then it's just the ADU then.
Got it.
And then my question is procedurally,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So during one of the work sessions, one of the work sessions, we had discussed that owner occupied were going to be able to do whatever they wanted and not have to get a business license and not have to pay lodging tax. And I just want to make sure that that did not make it in here because I thought it did. In the many things I've read, it could have been lost in translation.
I think you body would prove that and then the concept.
That's owner occupied. Sorry, Jeff. That's
just
owner
owner
occupied
occupied.
renting a room,
Support.
right?
Yeah.
So, Mayor LaBarre,
Yes.
the way this is, oh, good, did you want to finish?
Yeah,
what
so,
you-
I was gonna ask, I mean, how do we do this next? I mean,
That's what I'm trying to ask. That's why I'm asking the mayor.
because I know
Yeah.
there are a number of other amendments that have been discussed amongst some council members, and I'm trying to figure out how this gets played into this whole process of what we're doing right now. I mean, if we continue the discussion, do
Yeah.
they bring forth theirs? How do we conceptually do this? So because this is
Right.
not a normal,
Not normal.
not
Well,
normal.
It is normal.
Well, I'm
It's
just
normal.
different. It's just different.
So he just,
It's complex.
well, the way the amendments are complex.
It's complex,
So, yes.
Okay.
So what I'm seeing is Rusty has provided the ordinance with amendments that he would like to see done. He has had a motion and a second. So typically, we either have discussion before motions, or you can have a motion, have discussion, and then the vote. But there's a motion on the table that's been seconded. So you offered some amendments to those motions. That's okay.
And then we can just go down the line or?
So we can either go down the line and have consensus for those, or we can vote on this motion with this current ordinance that Rusty has proposed.
I would say that if you don't mind, Mayor, I
Sure.
would say that in discussion, if there's other council members that have things to offer, they
Mhm.
can do that. And if the motion maker and the second agree to them, they can be added to the motion.
Right, they
Before
have,
we vote.
they
Right.
can vote,
That's right.
they can approve to amend their motion. So,
That's right. We could make a motion to amend the motion and then,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Okay,
we
all
can
right.
do that.
Right,
Okay, all
procedurally,
right.
that's what
Procedurally.
I'm trying to lay
Yeah.
that out for us.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I'm good with what. Next.
Do you want me to amend
So-
those two items?
Yes, amend those two items.
Okay,
Yeah,
since it was my motion, I would like to amend my own motion so that the paragraph that states that the ADUs are not allowed, to be an STR. They are allowed to, ADUs are allowed to be an STR, provided the owner of the property is residing in the primary residence on that lot. Did I capture that?
yes.
And that portion of the planning commissions that stated that the owner occupied residents are not exempt from lodging tax be removed so that they do collect and remit lodging tax like everyone else. Those are the two.
You get what you.
Karen-
And
hold on,
the second,
just 1 second, because I see Karen having some frustration.
If
And
it's not in there,
Well, the lodging
And-
tax, the tax
It's-
is described in the tax code by use.
right,
So if they're using it in that capacity, that's how the code is written. So it should be covered anyway. If
if they're have a license and they're using the property in that way, the tax code already covers it.
I agree.
I
'Cause
agree.
it-
I just
it
want,
covers the use.
I just want to make sure that we're consistent and we don't have that language in there is
Right.
my only.
And
And,
I'm trying to amend
Yeah.
this motion to
Yeah.
capture
Yeah.
your
Right.
intent.
and the second will agree with Rusty's amendment to the motion.
And then now
Okay,
go with yours.
Okay.
Catherine, were you done? Okay. Councilmember Ott.
Go ahead and.
Oh, I have a collection of suggested amendments that have been worked by some of the members of council. So I'll just go through them. Some of them Catherine has already covered. So Councilmember Nakai has already covered. Number one, allow all existing
And
licensed.
Just one, just briefly.
Yeah.
Is it, what, like, can you tell me if it's just random, cool, but if it's in like a section, subsection, say that ahead of time so we can all follow where you're. where you're
Well, this
coming
is going to have to do with the caps. All right, this is in the section with the caps.
Okay,
So allow all existing licensed non-owner occupied STR businesses to continue to operate until they sell, change ownership, signatory and license is not transferable, or if they choose not to renew or have their license revoked, including the 31 applicants who are waiting. And we would remove the need for the caps on a wait list. It would reduce staff time, of course, and the caps, make it simpler application.
Before you go on, Robert, can I make a suggestion here? So procedurally, there should be, because otherwise he's tacking this onto their motion, and if they don't agree with it, it cannot
Right.
move forward.
right.
So I was given legal advice on this from Nina to go ahead and request a motion on that to amend what they've already put out.
Okay, so vote on what I've done.
No, she said make
Oh.
a motion after the person seconds to go over this, and then you can decide what
Oh,
you want
okay.
to do. You want, if you want to combine, if you want to do whatever.
Got it.
So that's what
That's
should
what
happen.
we're
So
doing.
you should make a motion to present this amendment as on.
Well, I can't
on
make a
their
motion while there's a
amendments.
motion on the table.
You can, that's what
Can
you
I?
told me.
Can I make a
Yes.
motion while there's a motion on the table?
It
Yes.
would be a sub motion.
You
Yeah,
can
making a
ask the
sub-motion.
motion maker if they would include that in their motion. And the second, if they would approve it. That's how that would work.
No, that's not. Nina told me that that if,
Would you do the motion?
once you do your motion, and you get your second, if we wanted to add to that for amendments, that we would make a motion and then present those things that we would like to see changed in there as well. Because it's still going to be the same ordinance that we're going to push through. We're not going to kill the ordinance, but we'd like to see these amendments and have council discuss those as well.
So
You make the motion and I'll read the points. Yeah.
So I make a motion to amend their motion with the following changes
This is.
in ordinance 1431.
So to allow all existing licensed.
So we have to have a second for that.
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
Is that
the sub
procedurally-
motions that we'll have to vote immediately, because otherwise it's gonna get
Yes, that's
to-
correct.
too complicated.
Yes.
Right. So, but you want me to read all of them?
You go slow.
You need to have them, all right. Allow all existing licensed non-owner occupied STR businesses to continue to operate until they sell, change ownership, signatory and license is not transferable, or if they choose not to renew or have their license revoked. Include the 31 applicants in waiting. This will remove the need for a cap or wait list, reducing staff time in the caps. 2, and you can have this list, by the way.
Are you guys clear on?
No, I want to
We're
clear.
gonna,
So-
let's discuss them one at a time since
Yeah.
it'll be easier for me to understand.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think what your sub motion,
What at a time, you're right.
I think what your sub motion is attempting to do is in paragraph G where it has established caps,
Strike it.
is basically removing any caps
Correct,
at all.
correct,
That's correct.
Is that-
correct. And you'll see why as we
Okay.
go into the next part.
Did you guys want a discussion on that, on this suggestion?
So
Which is
I think
why
we-
the wait list becomes irrelevant.
I think we
Correct.
should vote
Okay.
on, I think vote in on each sub motion because it's gonna get too
Oh, I see what you're saying.
complicated. So each sub motion that you suggest and you get a second, then I think we need to take a vote on whether it goes into Rusty's. Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, may I ask a question of the
Yeah.
attorney? Jeff, would you weigh in on this procedurally? Because I think we're completely out of order. Would you mind?
Yeah, my opinion is, sorry. My opinion is they can vote in series. They should vote, there's the motion on the floor. There's a proposal to add some material to the motion
Okay,
that should be voted upon.
thank you. I just wanted you to weigh in on that. for
You
me.
bet.
Thank you.
And you're happy we do that one at a time, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so again, so if the original motion with the amendments is on the table and then they're amending or we're attempting to amend or add to that. So if these amendments don't get a 4 vote, then they don't go into the motion. Is
Correct.
that
Correct.
correct? Okay,
Yes.
so I just want to make sure that if we vote yes or no, we're not killing the motion.
Right now, the
Right.
motion has Rusty's
Your-
amendments and your amendments.
Okay.
And now we're
then-
gonna vote on whether these amendments.
Okay, so then at the end of it, we have whatever we're gonna have in it, and that's what we're going to
Yes.
have public comment on. Am I correct?
That would be what we would vote on.
Okay,
Then
And it'll either pass or fail. And then either a new motion will be initiated or not. I don't know.
And for clarity, the reason why we did not vote on those two was because I amended my own.
Right.
It was not a sub motion.
right, I get that.
This
part.
is, okay, I'm just
I'm
trying to be.
I'm just trying to
clear.
figure out
So
that,
Yours will stand.
sorry, I'm
Agree
just
with
trying
each
to figure out that
other,
I don't
yes.
want to kill the bill,
We'll
so.
go-
Well, right.
And then if the ones that are voted will go into it. the ones that
Exactly.
aren't won't. And then we go back to the original motion for a solid vote to see if we all agree on that motion.
Correct.
Can we call the
That's
question,
correct.
Mayor?
Kelly,
So-
did you have something to say?
I just wanted to call the question, Mayor.
Well, we can't do that.
Well,
Can't do it now because we're in a.
Well,
sub-
we're up for a
Right.
vote.
right.
That's what I'm calling for.
Okay.
The attorney's given us guidance.
So
Okay,
you're calling
Wait.
Roberts.
On your
Yes.
subsection, on your first, the first proposal.
Oh, God.
Yes,
Yes,
very good.
I'm going to call the vote now.
Yes.
Connors,
Yes.
Nakai,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Zulawaga,
Yes.
Labar,
Yes.
Case.
no,
Thank you. Motion carries 6-1.
Okay, so that is in my motion.
Yes. So now the next one.
Point number 2, any new non-owner occupied STRs allowed, any new non-owner occupied STRs allowed in commercial, CBD, CC, NC, and ag zones with no caps or distance restrictions, not allowed in residential zones.
Say that again, please.
say that
So
again.
basically, any of the zones where they're authorized already as a use. We wouldn't have, there's gonna be no caps for it. Market will dictate, they're good in the zone. We don't have to have a cap in the zone like what is proposed in the ordinance as it stands now. We remove those caps. Could have, it's,
Hang on.
market takes it.
It's a.
Catherine, could you,
Catherine,
could you say it out
have
loud? in the mic,
microphone.
please?
Sorry. So so basically excluding the people that are already licensed going forward, any new owner, non-owner occupied would basically be only allowed in commercial zones
And without caps.
without caps
And ag,
and ag.
And
Yes.
without caps.
That's the,
Yes.
correct.
yes.
And they will not be allowed in residential zones.
And the current licensed owners will have a license forever. They want it, as was stated last.
Well, which was stated in number 1.
Yeah, which is stated in number.
That
one.
was the first point.
They
Correct.
would
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Karen has a question.
Well, a point of clarification. And you're probably going to want to be a little more clear about this. So 5.22020G is the paragraph that addresses caps. And from your sub-motion and vote you just took, it sounds like what you're really wanting to do is strike that paragraph from the ordinance. Is that what you were wanting to do?
And it would-
Because-
yes,
Because within that paragraph,
Yeah.
it only addressed caps in
Right.
3 zoning districts. So
yes,
anything that you
correct.
gentlemen are talking about now is not currently part of the ordinance. There were no other caps in the other zone districts.
correct.
It's just the SR, UR, and PUD that you've already talked about striking that particular paragraph.
So G could be struck and then that would be replaced by this, or as the attorney recommends.
Well, there's no caps in there for those zone districts now.
Right.
So
Well, in
I don't
here,
understand.
it says, yeah, but you're stating in G, no caps or maximum number of short-term rental business licenses shall be applicable within the NCCC, SC, CBD zoning districts. And we're adding ag to that. So it's in there already.
well,
It's
the other reason
stated
that
as
was there was to kind of differentiate from the other one. But if you, my thought is legal can chime in. If that entire paragraph was struck, that eliminates the caps, period.
Correct.
Yeah,
Does that do the same thing, Jeff? I mean, if that's the case, then
Right? Does the same thing.
Right.
That's the savings language.
Could you speak into your mic, please? This is a lot of people online. That's.
I know, I'm trainable. It's Louise. No, the savings language, as Karen said, is only. It's only as against the prior language. So I think taking out the entire paragraph is what you want to do.
And
Anybody disagree with that?
So what, the way I'm hearing this is we just struck caps, but now you're reintroducing caps.
no caps.
No caps.
So so hold on. So then you're introducing, what is the change you're introducing between owner occupied and non-owner occupied?
What we're saying is non-owner occupied are no longer authorized in residential of either sort, any sort, in MMS, et cetera.
With the exception,
With the exception of those who already have their existing license. And this does
include the
not
31.
affect,
to include the
Um,
31 that have already applied.
it includes those 31 who also applied in the last 7 days. But it does not, this does not apply to owner occupied. Owner occupied can't, because they are residential, they're fine. They can continue to operate as Council Member Nakai said, with licensing and paying lodging tax.
So what happens in 2023 then, at the end of December, when everyone needs to renew? And the zoning will not allow for non-owner occupied STRs?
No, they will be allowed. So they would have a legacy license. They will operate as long as they want, all of them.
Those existing, there will be no new. From moving forward, the bottom line is moving forward, all new applications for STRs will be in commercial districts.
Or
Yeah.
owner occupied.
Or owner occupied, but that they only need to get, they're not regulated. Well, they are in terms of tax and yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Does everyone understand that?
You want me to read it one more time?
So the proposal you read it.
Say again?
I was saying, I understood your proposal was to take out in paragraph 020 subsection G.
Yes, if that accomplishes what I've just said here, yes, that is correct. So any new owner occupied STR is allowed in commercial CBD, CC, NC, and ag zones with no caps or distance restrictions. STRs are not allowed in residential zones.
Is there a second? I didn't, for that motion.
Yes, I'll second it.
I'm going to do the vote then.
Yeah.
Nakai,
Yes.
Neil,
No.
Ott,
Yes.
Zulawaga,
Yes.
Labar,
No.
Case,
No,
Connors.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-3.
So let me clarify something real quick. That puts the amendment into Rusty's motion,
Yes.
okay?
And it will change. I guess that's something for you, Jeff. It's going to change what he had for caps.
Well, it would, we voted yes on removing of the caps. So the removal of the caps would go into Rusty's motion. There would be a removal of caps.
Okay.
But now you have voted that there are no caps for particular zones and no non-owner occupied new STRs in residential. That would go into Rusty's motion. So Rusty's motion will either then pass or fail with the as amended.
Right.
So, and then are there further?
Mhm.
Can I change my vote then?
We can revote.
Can you change your vote?
Well,
Oh,
I don't want, I don't
When-
want this to
If you
die.
feel like you didn't understand something,
Why do you think that's going
Then it's
to?
gonna die on the public reading that if that's the case. So might as well die now. than
Well,
No,
wait
we
2 more
can,
weeks
we
and
can
die.
always amend it at the public, at the public hearing. I just, this is extremely.
this is initial posting.
Initial posting, so.
So all that happens now is you can bring amendments. And then what will happen is it will be the initial posting as amended is what would move to public hearing. Should these amendments with this motion get moved forward? If there is, if these don't get moved forward, then we have to decide now what? Do we do original planning commission ordinance as written, period? Are there different amendments now that will come? This is a very complicated topic, and this is why I asked the public to allow council to have discussion before public speaks, because this wasn't happening. And this needs to happen, and this needs to happen in front of the public. Every council member needs to get out what it is they want to see happen, and the public needs to understand that. So before they make comments, they can understand what direction this is going and what's happening here. Because they didn't get an opportunity from us last time, because it got tabled. So this is the process, as painful as it is.
So can I clarify
then.
with this, Mayor?
Yes,
So even though there's pieces of this that we don't all agree with,
Mhm.
at least what this is doing is putting all of the suggestions into one place, right?
on the
So,
table. in front of
All
the
on the
public.
table, right?
Yes.
So we can
Yes.
then, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we can start to sift and sort what we have in actual document we can work from. Is that the bottom line? So there's stuff that I can see that
Right,
we don't
because
agree on, but
because
we're
what
getting somewhere
happens-
with it.
like, say this motion moves.
Yeah.
This ordinance moves to public hearing,
Yeah.
right? At public hearing, if you don't like it, the way that it has been amended,
Mhm.
then you vote no.
Right.
And then we
Or-
either.
Or you could make.
Or you can
Make amendments.
Make more
Right,
amendments,
and
right?
it keeps going.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
right,
okay.
Yeah. So whether it, yeah. This isn't permanent. This is.
This is
So
just
we
a
have an
working
actual
document.
working
It's really a working
document to
document
move
we can
forward.
discuss. Is that basically it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then the third one is allow owner occupied STRs in any residential, commercial, or ag district with no caps or distance restrictions. So allow owner occupied now. We're not talking about non-owner occupied. We're talking about owner occupied. They're allowed in any residential, commercial, or ag district with no caps or distance restrictions.
but not non-owner occupied.
Owner occupied, which basically is back to the whole castle doctrine of my house is my castle and I can do with it as I see appropriate. But I live there, and because they live there, they've got all the oversight and all the other pieces that go along with what a lot of the concerns have been.
Mayor, may I just make a comment?
Sure.
I just to caution the council that just had this long conversation during a work session about staffing and to consider the cost of enforcement of the things that are being proposed.
Very good.
Thank you.
But it's the same point I made. If you're not willing to fund it for the bureaucracy reasons of having to manage all of this, then be careful what you vote for.
And so on that
Thank you,
point,
Mayor.
what specifically are you seeing the escalator costs are in this as we're going through this document?
I'm just making the general
Oh, it's just a
statement.
general comment. Okay.
So.
You're just-
I
it's
have a
staff
motion.
time.
I don't have a second.
I'll make a second.
Would you like me to take the vote, Mayor?
Yes, sorry.
Neil,
No,
Ott,
Yes.
Zulawaga,
Yes.
Labar,
No,
Case,
No,
Connors,
yes,
Nakai.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-3.
are there further?
Yes, Rusty, as I'm not, I only heard what you said. I didn't have an opportunity to see it, study it, or whatever else. You talked about cabins. So can I just clarify on here, my point here? I'm saying add cabins without utilities to the non-used, non-allowed uses.
That was what.
That was in, so
He did
that's,
that.
okay, very good. And you've done ADU, Councilmember Nakai. Add ADUs to the allowed use as defined in the current ADU codes.
You had that, Rusty, right? Is that
Yeah.
the ADUs to be allowed just
Good.
owner occupied?
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And you had something in there about more than two or whatever. I just suggested it be a revocation would be 3 strikes and you're out in a 12-month period. Just something simple.
It's the same. So it's rotating so that it's not like a collective thing. So these folks that all have a license and will have a business with the 31, that they wouldn't be singled out for somebody to go after them. They would be able to have a reasonable, accommodation to operate and not so much worry about that, where it's like, if I get 3 strikes over 3 years, I'm done. It's on a rotating, it's 12 months rotating. So if you were to get, 2 strikes in 8 months, and then 13 months later, you've gotten another one, you're not going to lose your license or anything. It lets you deal with the fact that sometimes there might be somebody that doesn't follow your rules, and we don't want to absolutely punish you for that. We think that we would like to keep it fair and reasonable.
So is that intent covered in the way you expressed it, Rusty?
Yes.
yes, it is.
Okay, very good.
So then
And then
that's,
the last one, I don't think the bedrooms, is that what the?
Oh, we haven't got that far.
oh, yeah,
yet.
that's
We've got that far.
no change there, but
So you already brought up, Councilmember Nakai, to make sure, owner occupieds comply with the taxes levied in Title III, correct? With under revenue and finances. So that's covered. License verification on non-owner occupied, clerk to verify with planning that the requested license is in the allowed zone. I guess my question,
Wait, say it again. For
yeah,
Was that?
license, and this is really
for
for you,
non-owner
Michael.
occupied?
Hey, hold on, guys, 1 second.
I think it's going to be finance department.
Right, so it will be city clerk or designate.
Yeah.
Yes.
So by saying it this way, you'll just change whatever the language needs to
Yes.
be, right?
That makes
License
sense.
verification on non-owner occupied, clerk to verify or finance department to clarify with planning that the requested license is in an allowed zone.
Okay, I'll
So,
second the motion.
Could you read it again, please?
I would just comment on that is going to occur anyway. That's part of their duty.
So there was, Jeff would like some clarification.
I was making the note on the last. What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be a non-issue, because I think it's already in there that it's the clerk. It's just, I wanted to make sure that it didn't get lost like it has in the past. So clerk or designee. So I don't think we need to vote on that, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough.
and Michael, you're reviewing the whole
Yeah, the-
languaging and stuff anyway, aren't you?
We'll alter the application in our process to make sure, but
So I just.
You can
need
put it in, you don't
withdraw
have to.
that motion.
Say
I'll
again.
make a motion to withdraw that motion.
Thank you. I need just to
Can you second
withdraw. it.
that?
That's it.
Oh,
Just
sure.
withdraw.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Okay, define residence for owner occupied, no less than 185 days, allows for snowbirds to STR their home and residential zone, a license is required.
Who would monitor that?
Say that again, please.
Yeah, that's
Define
that's the.
residence
Is that-
for owner occupied, no less than 100, how they would monitor that in answer to that. I'll read it again and then I'll answer your question. Define residence for owner occupied no less than 185 days, allows for snowbirds to STR in residential zones. A license is required. It's basically saying it verifies by their where their residency is. In other words, their license is here, their whether they're in Texas or something else, here has to be their permanent residence.
Karen, go
I
ahead.
can address that. That is already actually covered in the recommendation that's in front of you this evening. The terminology is a little different.
Can you
And-
direct me to where? it
No,
is?
and I'm going to explain, I'm going to elaborate.
Okay.
And the reason is, we talked about this a lot at the planning commission level. That owner occupied, non-owner occupied is terminology is very awkward, very difficult for exactly the reason you're pointing out. So at the very front of this document, 5.22.010. There is a definition of primary residence that has criteria. So somebody's primary residence is really what you're driving at. And that's the
Yeah.
definition that you all are seeking.
So the way that's verified then is by driver's license and voter registration, bottom line. And you're gonna-
Driver's license or a Colorado State identification card, and it's two or more of the following. So that'd be one option, voter registration. Third one is motor vehicle registration, and 4 is documents designating a primary residence for income tax purposes. And a person may have only one primary residence for the purpose of this chapter.
So the difference would be it doesn't identify that they have to be there.
Right, so it
185
says
days, it
majority
just-
rather than,
Yeah, well, the majority is fine. I'm good with that.
very good.
You can't do
So-
a time. You
With
can't
that,
say majority of the time. You can only say what Karen is telling you.
well,
No,
it said, no,
you're
no,
saying
no,
what Karen's
she's
telling
saying
us.
that in her primary, in the definition, she says spends a majority of the time. So should that be changed to say 185 days?
No,
No,
because no one
majority of
can
the time.
monitor
We
how
can't
many
monitor
days you're
that,
in your
so, yeah.
house.
So majority of the time, and it's evidenced by where your domiciles.
And the criteria that's listed there is how you get to the verification that that
Right.
is a primary residence,
okay,
is those
fine.
legal documents.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with that. That's,
I'm good with that
that
too.
answers the question.
So
That's
that,
done.
this is not a motion, not moving that
Gotcha.
forward as a motion, okay? And that really covers 7, what defines an owner occupied for snowbirds. There is a primary residence. So that's been covered. Okay, and the last one is change to the number of occupants from 2 people per legal bedroom +2 to the number of legal bedrooms +2.
Wait, what?
I
Is
think
that-
so right now it's 2 per bedroom +2. This is saying 2 per 1 per bedroom +2, but I'm actually good with the 2 per bedroom +2.
Yeah, I am too at this point.
Yeah, I think that'll be, it's already there. I'm not trying, I don't want to change that from what it already was anyway, so I think we can leave that, let that one lie.
That concludes the amendments, the sub amendments that I'm wanting to bring forth here.
Okay.
So can I just make one comment before we go any further? I don't personally necessarily agree with all of these amendments. I just want to get them out there for the public to comment on. Whether I vote that way or not in the future is, I mean, I want to get as much public feedback as I can. I don't necessarily agree with everything that's in the amendment and the sub amendment, if that makes sense.
Sure, but if you don't agree with something, then you can vote no. So.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But-
yes and no, but I want to get it forward.
It's out there. Once they read the amendment, it's out there.
It's out there, and
publicly.
then if I decide I don't like it in 2 weeks, I can vote against it. I don't,
Yes, anyone
I'm
can
just,
change
it's a
their
very,
mind.
this is such a very difficult topic, and it's very important. I just want to get as much public feedback as we can. Right or wrong.
Mayor,
Yes,
with their amendments, I would like to make a further amendment to my original motion.
all right then.
I would like in the permitted table, section L for lodging we can add a 5 that under SR, UR, and PUD be a permitted use, period.
Okay, so can you say what your intent is with that?
To not have caps and not restricted to owner occupied
Okay,
In the SR zone?
in the SR, UR, and the PUD zones.
Some do's.
he's making a further amendment because he's allowed to.
And
I'll support that, Rusty, as your second.
Which takes away what we just voted on.
it basically takes away everything.
So we're all gonna kill it.
So Mayor, I have a
You know what?
point of clarification here.
You're taking us to wait until the end. You could do the same, and we could still push this forward, and you can still vote on this at the public hearing.
Okay,
It's not a done deal at this point.
I'm gonna let Robert make his comment, and then the trick with that was Kelly seconded it, so we have to go through that vote.
Okay, so then now logistically, we have this very complicated ordinance and proposed amendments on the table right now. And one's canceling out the other from what I can see. What's our, with a desire, I think there's a general desire to not kill the ordinance and have to start over again. And we could, I mean, we can do that. But with the desire not to do that, we either vote yes or no on this. If we vote yes, we've got a conflicted ordinance that one part of it cancels out the other. How's that going to work? What Rusty just proposed just cancels out what we just agreed on.
Let's stop somebody from doing another one.
And another one, and another
Well,
one.
right. So,
So now we have, with that amendment that was just made and seconded, it invalidates what we've just spent the last hour
Already
doing.
voted on.
well, it depends because we haven't voted yet, so we have to vote on the motion.
So-
Then make another motion to do it again.
Yes.
And then what?
So I've got,
So then
I'm
what we
trying to
do
get,
is call the vote.
I'm trying to get it, trying to get a procedural clarification, and maybe Jeff, you're the one to answer, but Mayor, if you can, that's great. Because this is totally canceled itself out.
Well, it hasn't-
Where's
But it
our
hasn't
next, what's our,
It hasn't
It hasn't
yet.
canceled it out.
well,
No, it hasn't.
all right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let's call the vote on this motion.
Right.
Suzanne,
And what my point is, if this passes, if it passes, it's a done deal. If it fails, where do we go with it next? Because we were supposed to move something forward.
so then it will be the ordinance with the amendments need to be voted on.
Correct.
And it will either pass or fail.
Correct.
And it will either pass with amendments or fail. And then, like I said earlier, you can either choose to introduce the original, or kill it altogether.
So we know what happens. If it passes, it moves forward and
public
and we
hearing,
move
but-
to the next one. But if
Yep.
it fails, we had on our agenda the original motion. Before we could even get to that, Councilmember Neal proposed a bunch of amendments to it. So if it fails, do we go back to that or is it done?
Do another motion.
If the motion fails, you go back to the planning commission version of the ordinance that's presented.
And
on
start
first reading.
again.
Start again.
So Jeff, procedurally then.
And you could, excuse me, you could send that forward to second reading
Right.
and we could do this whole. final
Whole thing
all
again
over
in 2 weeks
at
time.
second reading, or as many as the mayor pointed out, and some of you have commented, you could throw all this stuff in like the kitchen sink, pass the thing with the amendment to second reading, and then if there's two contradictory provisions, you necessarily have to remove one of them.
Right.
But it's some work you're gonna have to do on second reading. But this is a preliminary vote to keep it going.
So
Mayor,
Jeff,
call
I'm
the
confused then
question.
on procedure here.
So we,
So
hang on
he-
1 second. Let's call the question for his.
I don't know how we can call the question. We already voted on that, what he just asked for, we just voted on already.
Mayor, I just called the question.
Now it's the whole thing. Now it's the whole thing combined.
Oh, you're saying the whole thing combined. Oh,
Now we're doing the whole thing.
okay,
So it's got two disparaging.
I got it.
Yeah,
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Neal A second by Mayor Pro Tem Case.
And Rusty, will you please clarify your motion, just because I've lost it and I don't know what I'm voting
The,
on.
the permitted use table in the SRUR and PUD that short-term rental units in accordance with chapter 5.22 and section 18.78.050 be permitted.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, Suzanne, go ahead.
That's okay. Ott,
No.
Zuluaga,
No.
Labar,
Yes.
Case,
Yes.
Connors,
No.
Nakai,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
motion fails 4-3. No. it
No,
passes.
it's
I
passed.
got
No,
it
it
right. I'm
passed.
sorry. I got it right. I'm sorry.
It moves
Passed.
forward.
Moves forward.
Those forward.
That was for that amendment. Now we have to take care of the original motion that Rusty made originally.
No,
No, that was-
that
was
was it.
That was it. Okay.
was it, Kevin.
It's
cool.
all mixed together. It's all there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
I think I'm gonna retire tonight, so I don't have to do the minutes.
Right. Okay. So are you all clear what happens now?
Yes.
Yes, so I guess Jeff, if you could explain to us, it's obvious, we just approved an ordinance to go forward for initial posting, which has contrary language in it.
Yes.
We'll deal with it in public.
Could you put on the mic again?
This is going to turn into an inside joke. There's already been initial posting. That's what we did here on first reading.
Great.
And yes, you just approved sending an ordinance to second reading that has contradictory language in it. So that's something you're going to have to take care of on second.
On second reading, okay.
Which is
very-
okay. We can.
That's fine, okay,
It's fine.
okay, yeah, got it,
Well,
great.
the attorney's good to
Yeah,
point out. the
we like challenging
contradictions.
work.
So now you're ready to present, the definitions.
Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so now what everyone's been waiting for is public comment. And Suzanne, I don't have the list for people
I
who have
have
signed
it
up.
here and I have them in the computer.
Okay,
I-
Mayor LaBarre.
yes.
So we're going to present the definitions first before the.
Oh, I forgot. I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. You do one over one.
Are they up there? I'll just read them.
Okay.
We're still doing the presentation.
So as we read the slide, it's just informational, not really a conversation thing or with a lot of explanation. It's just definitions of what applies to this and use definitions so that some folks understand, because I've heard a lot from the public. I've heard a lot from my own council members, and some of these terms were not understood. I just wanted to make sure they were read out loud. So once we read that slide, if you could just flip to the next for time purposes, we appreciate that. All right, so what is a short-term rental? Short-term rental is typically defined as a rental of any residential dwelling unit or accessory dwelling unit or for a short period of time, typically no more than 30 days, and can be a resident occupied or non-resident occupied. Simple as that. Such rentals are also sometimes referred to as transient rentals, vacation rentals, short-term vacation rentals, resort dwelling units. In answering the question, what is a short-term rental? A definition by use justifies a better answer than to the name by which it is referred, because that is how so why define it per use? Because that is how our zoning codes and ordinance use of property is how it is governed for the permitted use table in Title 1809-090 and text in Title 33810. So basically everything that we do in that code, you see as a use. It doesn't, when it says a lodge or an inn or a bed and breakfast, the code doesn't see that as a building or something specifically for that use. It doesn't matter what you call it, it taxes it and governs it based on its use. So for example, if I have a hotel and it's called the Motor Inn Lodge, they don't tax it as a lodge because they call it a lodge. They tax it as a hotel because it's being used by the definitions in the code and the law as a hotel. So I just want to make that clear. So these are the definitions here, or I'm sorry, you want to take the.
Oh, sure. These are simply the definitions. So SR is a single family residential with lot sizes equivalent to one dwelling unit per acre allowed allowing a variety of lot sizes with an approved minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet. UR is a single-family residential with previously developed lot size less than a 7,500 square foot per dwelling unit. MFS, multifamily residential with attached units having a density level from 2 to 8 dwelling units per acre. And MFU, multifamily residential with attached units having a density level from 9 to 20 dwelling units per acre.
All right, so with respect to our city charter, definitions in the code and ordinances are how we determine, or how use is determined. Definitions are also how use is governed once determined. So let's look at the applicable definitions before we pass along some information with respect to city code. Zoning limits to the use of what is permitted through definitions.
So definitions 18.06.070 building. Building means any structure designed or intended for the support, enclosure, shelter, or protection of persons, animals, chattels, or property, and forming a construction that is safe and stable. And that references an ordinance back from 1986. Suzanne has been kind enough to get those to us. You can't just go on the website and click that and get a hyperlink. It requires getting it. So anyone wants those, they are now available, right? Okay. 17.08.120 dwelling unit. Dwelling unit means one or more rooms arranged, designed, or used as living quarters for one family only. Individual bathrooms and complete kitchen facilities permanently installed shall always be included. In the case of a townhouse or condominium, the dwelling unit represents the smallest portion of a building which may be sold individually from one owner to another. From a 1984 ordinance.
Yeah, and those ordinances, they're rolled forward as they go and they get codified in our code, but they have a lot of explanation in them. Dwelling or residence means a building or structure used in whole or part for human habitation. Ordinance 692, 1996. Structure means a walled and roofed building or manufactured home that is principally above ground, from Ordinance 474, 1988, Part 2.
18.06.159 dwelling or residence, single family. Dwelling or residence, single family means a building containing only one dwelling unit and, if permitted, in accordance with section 1833(135), one accessory dwelling unit, which is an ADU, per ordinance 1383, 2020. Family, 1806.210. Family means an individual or two or more persons related by blood, marriage, adoption, or guardian and ward, or similar legal relationship, or a group of not more than 5 persons, excluding servants, who need not be related by blood, marriage, or adoption, living together in a dwelling unit. Ordinance 692, 196.
All right, Ordinance 46, 1969, a family. One or more persons occupying a premises and living as a single housekeeping unit, as distinguished from a group occupying a boarding or lodging house or hotel. Ordinance 705, 1997, suburban residential, single family housing in these designated areas. One, DUAC allowing an approved minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet is intended to create suburban character in those areas fully serviced by municipal water or sewer facilities.
ADUs came up earlier. 18.06.016 accessory dwelling units, ADU, means a clearly subordinate habitable living unit added to or created within a single family dwelling or attached garage, or created within a detached garage accessory to a single family dwelling, providing the habitable living unit is located in the upper level of the detached garage. Habitable living unit means that there are contained within the unit the basic requirements for living, sleeping, cooking. That is, complete kitchen area with cook stove, oven, refrigerator, or sink, and sanitation. Primary unit is the term used to refer to the portion of the single family dwelling or the garage that is not the ADU. Ordinance 1209, 2014.
1833, 135, accessory dwelling units, the purpose, The purpose of this section is to expressly allow the creation of ADUs to provide additional housing options for residents of a variety of age and economic groups while preserving the character of single-family neighborhoods, provide standards for minimizing the potential effects on neighborhoods and the community from increased density and parking demands, encourage the creation and availability of safe, low-cost, habitable rental units, and offer a way for homeowners to offset their cost of living.
This is a repeat slides. Go to the next one if you would. Title 9, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare. 9.66.010. Private property means any dwelling and its curtilage, that's the area around it, which is being used by a natural person or natural persons for habitation and which is not open to the public, and privately owned real property which is not open to the public. Private property shall not include any establishment which leases, rents, or provides accommodations to the members of the public generally.
So now we'll move on to definitions for uses. This section not only gives the definitions, but also references the ordinances that brought us to the definitions and uses we see today in the permitted use table found in our current code in 18.09.090 in the permitted use table. 18.12.10 permitted uses within the suburban residential district, buildings, structures, and land may be used for any of the purposes designated under the SR in the table of permitted uses for business, industrial, and residential districts located in section 18.09.090. And then you can see the ordinances. There's a number of them, and I'll save time to not read all of those.
So character of the neighborhood, 18.33.110. Uses shall not involve any activity not in character with the majority of the uses in the neighborhood, unless by design, setback, nature of operation, or other devices, the character of the neighborhood will be maintained. That's back from ordinance 46 in 1969. Community welfare, 18.33.120. Uses shall not involve any activity which adversely affects the general welfare of the community. Again, from ordinance 46, 1969.
18.12.10 permitted uses within the, I think we've already hit that slide.
Yep.
Okay, 18.06.20 accessory use means the use of a structure naturally and normally incidental to, subordinate to, and devoted exclusively to the main use of the land or buildings. Accessory buildings shall not be larger than the main or principal building, otherwise they shall be considered a main or principal building. Accessory buildings shall be constructed only if construction of principal building has commenced, and no accessory building shall be placed in the front yard. And the ordinance there are 692/1996, number 13, 2017, and then Exhibit A 46/2017.
18.06.250 home occupations. Home occupations mean any occupation or profession conducted entirely within a dwelling unit and which meets the standards of section 18.33.150 of this title. Ordinance 692/1996. 18.06.049 bed and breakfast establishment. Bed and breakfast establishment means a residence used primarily as a private residence which offers sleeping accommodations to guests for a fee. The number of guest rooms is not to exceed 10. Ordinance 692/196.
And then just to make a note on that, it looks like it says it's in a private residence. It's supposed to be conducted in a private residence, but yet it's not on the use table for SR zones and the other residential zones, I believe. So it's kind of strange to me that you have a bed and breakfast that says it's supposed to be in a residential house that's a primary residence, but it can't be in a residential neighborhood. But I want to make that distinction. So 18.33.161 bed and breakfast establishment. The bed and breakfast hotel establishment shall be subject to the following performance standards. The establishment shall be limited to 10 guest rooms. The establishment must be a residence used for primarily as a private residence, which offers sleeping accommodations to guests for a fee. The establishment shall provide short-term overnight loading limited to no more than 30 consecutive days. the establishment shall provide that breakfast is included in the room rate and is available only to get registered guests. The establishment shall be found not to injure the value and qualities of the area surrounding the establishment, and the following conditions shall apply.
Go ahead and read them. This is subsection B.
Yeah, and this is continued on from subsection E here. Minimum outward modification of the structure or grounds may be made only if such changes are compatible with the character of the neighborhood. The exterior appearance of the structure shall not be altered from its single family character and shall exhibit no outward individual of a business. The establishment shall be found and determined by the city planning commission and the city council not to injure the value and qualities of the neighborhood surrounding the establishment.
Ordinance 106, series 1979, 18.12.010, permitted uses within the R1 residential district. Buildings, structures, and land shall be used for the following purposes. A, dwellings, single family only. Ordinance 2010, series 1981, 18.09.010, designated. The city is divided into the following zoning districts. A, R1 residential district, single family only. And of course, there's a whole list of them that we have. We're just wanting to clarify this designation.
1806-350, non-conforming use. Non-conforming use means any building and land lawfully occupied by a use at the time of passage of an ordinance codified in this title, which does not conform with the regulations of the district within which it is located. Ordinance 692-1996. 308-40, general terms, distinction, words and phrases defined. Accommodation means furnishing of rooms or accommodations by any person, partnership, association, corporation, estate, representative capacity, or any other combination of individuals by whatever name known to a person who for consideration uses, possesses, or has the right to use or possess any room in a hotel, inn, bed and breakfast, residence, apartment, hotel, lodging house, motor hotel, guest house, guest ranch, trailer coach, mobile home, auto camp, or trailer court and park or similar establishment for a period of less than 30 days under any concession, permit, right of access, license to use, or any other agreement otherwise.
18.06 to 88, lodges and inns. Lodges and inns means a building or group of buildings under single management containing rooms, not more than 20, for temporary rental or to transient individuals or families. On-site additional services may include a restaurant, meeting rooms, established entertainment and recreational facilities, and where required parking is provided on site. Ordinance 692, 1996. 1806-340, motels, hotels, and suites. Motels, hotels, and suites means a facility offering transient loading accommodations to the general public. Any number of rooms are allowed in these facilities and may provide additional services such as restaurants, meeting rooms, entertainment and recreational facilities, and where required parking is provided on site. Same ordinance 692, 1996.
All right, this is the permitted use table, because as we were trying to explain here with these definitions of what is a permitted use and what things are, because the code does not see things as whatever you might call them. It sees things as the use that it is being used for. The building, structure, whatever. That's how it's taxed. That's how it's governed. And that's why on the permitted use table for lodges and inn of less than 20 rooms, there's no current use in there. And also for bed and breakfast, which I thought was surprising based on what I said earlier with the private, that it's supposed to be in a private residence. So that's interesting. Next slide.
3.04020 application construction. A, the provisions of this chapter shall apply to the administration, enforcement, and collection of sales and use taxes by the city, including taxes levied and imposed by this chapter and any tax provided by ordinance and to be administered, enforced, or collected pursuant to the provisions of this code. B, as used in this chapter, unless the context otherwise provides the term code means and includes the provisions of this chapter and the provisions of each and every ordinance or code administered under its provisions. Ordinance 605, 1994.
All right, 30840, general terms, distinction, words and phrases defined, definitions when not clearly otherwise indicated by context. The following terms, words and phrases are used in the code. Shall the following meanings an accommodation, meaning furnishing rooms or accommodations by any person, partnership, association, corporation, estate, representative capacity, or any other combination of individuals by whatever name known. I think we covered accommodation already anyways in the regular.
This is under the tax.
Tax version,
Yeah,
okay, I
right.
think it's about the same here.
Yep.
For consideration, uses, possesses, or has the right to use or possess any room in a hotel, inn, bed and breakfast, residence, apartment, hotel, lodging house, motor hotel, and so on, as said in the previous definition.
And I think the point about that is it's showing the crossover between different titles in the code. Regulation and undertaxing for business means and activities engaged in or caused to be engaged in with the object of gain, benefit, or advantage, direct or indirect. 3.38.010, lodging tax levied, use of revenues. There is levied a tax of 5 7/10% on the purchase price paid for the short term, less than 30 consecutive days leasing or rental of any hotel room, motel room, apartment, lodging, or in-room, a motorhome, guest house, mobile home, trailer court, bed and breakfast, or any other place that furnishes sleeping accommodations under any concession, permit, right, or access, license to use or other agreement or otherwise within the city.
All right, the revenues from said tax shall be used for the payment of activities associated with economic enhancement, sustainability of the city, to include without limitation capital projects and annual operating and maintenance expenses for beautification, the streetscape purposes throughout the city, and for advertising, marketing, and promotion of the city. And ordinances 932, 2002, 221, 2002, 1207, 2014, 2014.
You wrap it up.
And that is it.
Thank you, Mayor. Concludes our presentation.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure why. Like,
So
Why
that
all the
everybody understands those
definitions?
definitions, understands what use means.
so,
I'll give you a why, just to summary, at least in layman's terms. When we look at all of the language that goes on, everybody is having, and then we have both sides of the aisle, or both sides of the points of view in the community. Some people say, yes, you know, I live in a single family resident neighborhood and I don't want a business operation happening in it. And the business folks say, oh, no, I have a right to do a business. It's my property and I can do it in that residence. We're simply trying to say, for all of you, no matter where you sit on the spectrum here, these are the definitions that have been established in our code since 1969. Actually, it goes back. Suzanne will tell you that she's got records, handwritten records back to 1891. So these have been built. Our community has been built step by step by step on these definitions. And what we're trying to unwind here before you is, how do we protect all of your rights by looking at the definitions that are clearly spelled out in our city's documents? And hopefully this will be helpful to you as you work through not only your feelings on it, but actually what the law says.
And the intention of it.
And
That's why the ordinances are there. I went back and researched this to look at ordinances so that I understood the intent of what this was. Like, for example, it specifically states in the older ordinances that a single family residence, a dwelling unit, is specifically for one family living in the residence. And that, when they write that, and that carries on throughout the code and it's codified into our current code, definitions start to lose meaning because they just put the words in there and you don't know where it came from and what it tied to. So you have to do a little research to figure out and understand what it means. And a lot of people don't understand that the way that our cities are governed and taxed is by use, not by the name of something. You can call it an STR, you can call it a lodge, you can call it a skyrock from the moon. It doesn't matter. If you use it for that purpose, that is how it is taxed and that is how it is governed. So that's why you didn't see it on the permitted use table. And I just want you to know why. Agree with me or not, it doesn't matter. I just want you to know why. I want you to know where it's at. And I encourage you to go look at the code. You can go to the city website. It's up right when you go to the first page. It's up on the top right side there. So take a look at it.
okay, but the problem with the code is that STR is not defined
It is
currently.
defined by use,
It's defined by use
clearly.
multiple times.
Mayor, this is a matter of opinion, and I think we
But-
need to move
It's in
on.
the code.
to
It's in
agenda,
the
please.
code. Right, matter of opinion.
Where,
Read the code.
Doesn't matter.
Guess not.
Can we move forward,
Because
Mayor?
if a use isn't specifically addressed though in the ordinance, the legal standard for the use then is most closely related to. It doesn't make the use illegal. It must specifically say the use is not permitted.
I didn't say it was illegal. It's just not permitted.
It
based on
doesn't
use.
say it's not permitted. That is why
It's
all
not
over the
permitted.
country,
It's not permitted in our code. If it's not permitted, it has to be added to permitted use to be used in that way.
we can add it then.
Okay, well, I don't agree with that, but my point is. to
Just add
educate
it
folks
then.
On how to do it.
I mean, we're-
Just add it because the conduct of the bit of the city historically has been that they are legal. Why is the city then taxing?
I thought we were done with
This
our comment. We were gonna let
use-
the public comment.
Well, you presented this
No, it's
where we
fine.
can have
Okay.
dialogue.
Comments, go for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer me if you're not comfortable with what I have to say either.
Go ahead,
That's
I'm
fine.
comfortable answering you.
But historically, the city has allowed them.
That
And
doesn't
the
make it
city-
right, as if for a use.
So then the city should return all lodging tax and
Should, they
all
should.
license
They
fees
absolutely should, because they issued. those licenses
historically.
Outside of the permitted use in the code,
That's right.
period,
All of that money should.
period.
And the
See-
people who purchased those properties relied on that.
Shame on the city.
So
Shame on
you're
the city.
saying instead of conducting business as it has been historically, you don't want to do that. You want to financially damage the owners of those properties and this city
Oh,
simply
so I would be
because
doing that by
why?
allowing them to operate as long as they want? I'm not damaging them. They can operate as long as they want.
Non-owner occupied,
Owner occupied can operate as long as they
As long
want, and
as
they
they
can
want.
even apply for new licenses.
but
Until
there
they sell. it.
are people,
Not
there
going
are a
forward.
majority of owners who are not owner occupied.
And they get to
And-
keep their licenses
And
forever.
how then, if STR was never allowed, but suddenly you're going to distinguish between owner occupied and non-owner, so you're gonna be prejudiced against the owners of the homes.
The code tells you, we just went through the definitions to articulate exactly why
didn't
there's
see
a
that.
why there's a difference.
I don't see that.
Well, I'm happy to
I
give
see
you the
your
presentation
opinion
if you
of
want to
it.
review it, because there's a lot of brain power goes into understanding the definitions, taking them back.
The whole thing though is we are the legislature. We control these definitions. We don't have to abide by them. We can create them or it can be permissible. because
Clearly, we are not abiding
historically It's been permissible.
Well, I guess
According to you.
According to our code, the use is not
No.
permitted.
The code is not a prison that we live within. The code doesn't tell me I can ride my bicycle on my lawn. It can't include
It does say a
everything
lot of
you're
that stuff.
allowed to do. It only includes things you shouldn't be doing. And if it's not specifically designated, it's permitted by law.
That is.
That is why
untrue.
the entire country has STRs.
No, Councilmember Labar,
If
I
it's
think,
not in the permitted
I,
use, you can't use it for that. And if you wanted to use it for that for permitted use, you have to go through planning commission, board of adjustment, change the zoning, change the code. There's a process for that if you want to do it that way. But if it's not on the permitted use table of use, you can't use it for that.
and I think
That's
that's
not
what,
accurate.
well,
Okay.
we
I
could
believe it
argue
is.
back and forward, but I think that, just a minute, Rusty, I just want to finish this thought and then you can go for it. The point is that we have established our entire community on foundational principles and they're on definitions. And people who have moved into each of these different areas have said, great, this is what's allowed in our community. These are the train tracks we run on. I go along with that.
So if you
And
want to go
just
back to
let
the
me finish the list
60s,
of the thought and you could go ahead. But so that's what people have agreed to. Now, when people are using their property for other than what has been defined as a community, what we've laid in place, that creates an imbalance. It's fine for them, but it's not fine for the people who have agreed to what we have laid out as the zones and the ordinances and the languaging within our community.
For
So I
years.
rest.
Me too.
Mayor,
I'm sorry,
yeah, I'm gonna,
does our code define short-term rental?
what, oh,
Karen, I don't think it does it?
It doesn't explicitly define it.
What does it do?
Mayor?
What does your short-term rental do? It's defined as a use.
A dwelling. The use is a dwelling.
No, the use is accommodation and lodging because they're not living there, they're renting it to someone else on a short-term basis, and that is a lodge by use in our code, says it very clearly.
it's covered.
Don't know how to say it any clearer.
I'm sorry, Rusty, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody trying to be a lawyer. I really do. Because I go out and read all the court cases.
And we appreciate you trying to be funny.
Right, which I'm not very successful at very often.
You're okay, Rusty.
In conversations with Councilmember Nakai, there were two words that I tried to find out authoritatively from our attorney. The one was illegal and the other was unpermitted. And it's here's what I was told, and I'm going to kind of lead into something that our city attorney, Jeff Wilson, provided that was so insightful. Now, the first thing I learned from the attorney was when I asked her to address the word, are they illegal? She said, no, they are not illegal. I said, good. Now let's move on to the word permitted. When I asked Nina, are they permitted? She gave a very interesting statement of what the general law was, that they were not permitted. But then there was a little clause in the general zoning rule laws. There's, zoning is a whole separate thing, and it's different from other contracts I learned. It is very, very different. When use tables are written, the general rule is if it's not listed, it's not permitted. However, there's a clause, and you gave me the clause on the telephone. It makes it situational. I'm trying to guide you in the telephone calls, so it rings a bell. Can you explain to these gentlemen over left and right to the city what that clause was, which makes this very ambiguous, whether it's really permitted or not? They want to make it sound like it's crystal clear, not permitted.
It is.
This
That's exactly right.
clause, the clause
Magic clause.
makes it
No,
interesting. Jeff,
Christmas is
the
coming.
clause you said about it being, it's situational. You gave me the words that the general rule was, yep, it's not permitted. However,
Just because it's not permitted.
okay, all right.
Jeff, you could tell everybody.
Yeah, I know, but. I got.
The
find it.
microphone.
Okay.
He
That's
knows.
what he meant.
He knows. I
have to find it.
The gist of what you told me, do you remember the gist? No, okay, disregard, please. There is a gist. At least I was told there is.
Okay, Councilmember Case, since I can't see you.
I'm here.
Okay,
I'm right here.
I just didn't know if you wanted to chime in.
I'm discouraged by the disrespect between council members and not allowing, we all listen to the presentation, and to ridicule, I think, is very rude and not very professional for council members back and forth. Robert and I have had those engagements before, and I apologized, and I just think that we can do this in a civil manner and not ridicule each other. That's all I have to say, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion then?
Nope.
All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and open this up to public comment.
So Mayor LaBarre, what we did last time and what I suggest, if okay with you, I have everybody that signed up online in
Yes.
the order that I received them.
Okay,
We'll call their name, call the next person, so they're on deck,
good.
ready to roll. And all of the people online go first. The people that signed in this evening then will follow.
Okay,
Okay, so this gentleman made this request at the last council meeting. It's Matt E. So Matt E, if you're in the audience or if you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. And then on deck, we have Rick Roberts, if you're here with us in the audience, or okay, Matt's here. He has his hand up. Sarah, could you please promote Matt? Thank you.
and Matt, just remember to unmute yourself.
Here we see you, Matt. We just can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Matt Edmonds. I live in Forest Edge Park. And I'd like to offer you my opinion on short-term rentals and residential zones. For the record, I live next to an Airbnb, so your decision will affect me either way. I've heard over the last few weeks several arguments over why or why not the council should regulate short-term rentals. The overall consensus I hear is zoning issues, degrades community, overcrowding, partying, or I don't want my kids growing up near strangers who could potentially be dangerous. All valid arguments. The main problem that I see here is that further regulation of how a property owner uses his residential home could lead to a domino effect of regulations on similar matters into the future. For example, today we complain about short-term rentals. 10 years down the road, the same argument we made of long-term rentals. After that, my neighbor's garage business makes too much noise. A lot of us say we believe in American values and principles of freedom, that we stand for limited government, less regulation, individual liberty, and so on. Well, actions speak louder than words, and some of us are paying attention. As much as I would love the convenience of not having strangers partying or overcrowded streets next door, I'm falling back on the principles that I believe in, which is limited government, less regulation and control, the government operating only within its intended purpose and intervention only when absolutely necessary. If we want future generations to truly be free, this is paramount. Allowing government to fix all our problems eventually leads to the opposite of freedom. A decision to ban future short-term rentals in residential zones will have downstream effects and set a precedent. When you grow up with little freedom or under heavy regulation, one might not see it as a big deal to compromise just a little. Unbeknownst to you, there's been a never-ending road of compromise in the direction of more regulation and less freedom. I do not envy your position to make a decision that will inevitably make some people mad. I don't claim to have all the answers to these issues. I'm just asking you to think about the long-term implications of our never-ending reliance on government to fix our problems. Personally, the only thing that I care about above all else is preserving freedom so that the future generations may enjoy it. Even if this issue causes me problems personally, if it preserves just an ounce of freedom, to me, it is worth it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Matt.
So next we have Rick Roberts with Arnie Sparnans on deck. Rick, if you're on Zoom. I'm not seeing him at the moment, so if you're there, Rick, raise your hand. We'll get to you. Arnie, can we have you come up, please? On deck for Arnie is Sarah Ray, if you're in the audience or if you're on Zoom.
Before you start the clock, I'm going to slip in. When you mentioned 522.020, that if I read that correctly, it says owner occupied short-term rentals are excluded from all the provisions of 5.22. So they're not covered for anything, which means they're not taxed and they're not regulated for occupancy or anything else. But I'll leave that to you doing your wordsmithing there. So Honorable Mayor, City Council, my name is Arnie Spartans. I live at 2621 Vista Glen Court. And yeah, I'm here to basically, I know that we have an overwhelming, or we've had an overwhelming number of people representing the short-term STR investor community and people with vested interests. And I'm concerned that we've lost sight of what the original problem was. And so I went back, looked at the, worked through the community engagement report, and I want to submit it to the council for them to reread all the initial comments, because while this ordinance addresses some of the problems that we experience with short-term rentals, it doesn't identify and doesn't go after the two fundamental concerns that are in there: community character and housing stock. And housing stock's listed separately in two different ways. If you combine them together, you can't just add them, but you can combine them together and actually go through the different comments and get an accurate count there. Those are the main issues. And I was very happy to see that the city council identified the gap and was working the proposed language, looking at owner occupancy as a requirement, to do a short-term rental in a residential area. If we look at communities along the Front Range that are successful in managing short-term rentals, take Fort Collins, Denver, Colorado Springs, the key item there is they differentiate owner-occupied short-term rentals from non-owner occupied short-term rentals. So basically, if we hold up with amendments that drive that way, I think, because if we look at the top concern with community character and we look at housing stock being a concern, if you do that differentiation for owner occupancy, you hit it right on the head. I mean, that just really solves the fundamental problem. And it's the fundamental problem that people have expressed through the community input that represents a cross-section of inputs out there. So, that's basically all I had to say. I do support, appropriately managed owner occupied STRs in residential neighborhoods. I do not support non-owner occupied STRs in residential neighborhoods. So think of the problem statement, make sure that we're addressing, the core issues and read through this, because you'll see what the definition of how those issues are impacting people in the community out there. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Arnie.
And I'll submit that for the record, to be, I'd like to consider these 39 pages of comments, public comment on the issue out there. Yeah.
I can take that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sent you an electronic copy too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Sarah Ray and on deck, Steve Starr.
Hello, thank you so much for allowing me to comment this evening. I am Sarah Ray and I'm here with my husband, Brian. We've been residents of Woodland Park for the past almost 17 years. We actually moved up here when we were in our 20s, which nobody does that. So we love this community, and in order to afford to live here, we have always rented out a portion of our home. And as such, that has allowed us to work nonprofit jobs that we love for nonprofit salaries that we don't love as much. And we depend on our short-term rentals to provide our livelihood in addition to those salaries that we have. And so I want to say thank you for considering the provision of the legacy STR licenses, because without that, honestly, my family invested in a second. So I should say we have one Airbnb that's owner occupied, and we have one that we've invested in because the owner occupied one has done so well. And I want to speak to both because I think it's important to get both perspectives given what Arnie just shared. As someone who has both, we invested in a second one this last February. We invested over $400,000 into a business opportunity because the city gave us permission to do that. And we believed that we had that permission from the city to continue operating a business in our community. And as a result, you invest in a mortgage, you invest in furnishing and putting in hot tubs and putting in new carpet and electricity, and you invest a ton of cash on top of the mortgage that you put in. And so if that were to be taken away overnight or even within the next couple of years, we would be out so much money that we would probably go bankrupt as a family. Not to mention the fact that we'd never get a return on our investment of the cash that we put in, even if we were able to sell the home for a reasonable price, which we couldn't do in the next year because of capital gains. And so we're really stuck without that legacy clause. And we really applaud you for considering that, because we need it, or else you're going to really hurt a lot of real families who live here and work here. But as someone who has both kinds of properties and loves my neighbors and loves this community and wants this community to thrive and to prosper, I just want to share a few of the things that we have done. And I'm sure that a lot of my friends here are doing the similar thing. We send a letter with our phone number, with the list of our rules of our Airbnb related to quiet hours, related to substance use, related to parking. And what we put clearly listed in each of our rentals is written in that letter, so our neighbors know what we expect our guests to comply with. And it's listed not only in the rules of our Airbnb, but also we send it to them when they book. And we say, no parties are allowed. This is the consequence if this happens. This is where you park, et cetera, et cetera. Our neighbors call us frequently if they have any sort of issue. It's usually because a bear got into the trash. That is really the only reason they call, or because we left a window open when we were cleaning and they just wanted us to know. My son comes with me when I clean. He rides his bike up and down the street. He knows all of our neighbors by name. He plays with all of our neighbors, both in our owner-occupied rental and our non-owner occupied rental. We have a Nest camera at our property, so we can provide oversight and regulation when we're not there. That is something I'm sure many of you are doing. Raise your hands if you do that. Do you do that? They do that. So we provide oversight even when we're not there. And I would say that's even better than oversight provided by those who are potentially snowbirders who spend 180 days in one place and 185 in another. I am able to provide oversight for my short-term rental, whether I'm there or not, because I live in this community and
Sarah,
I care.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but your time's up.
Sure. Thanks so much for letting me share. I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Thank you. Sometimes I try to wait for a natural breath break before I interrupt people, but you were on a roll and I was trying to find my way in there.
So Mayor LaBarre, we have Mr. Starr, and then you're approaching your 9 o'clock or approached your 9 o'clock.
It is not.
Okay, we're gonna let Mr. Starr go ahead and go,
Roger.
and then we'll talk about a break.
Okay.
Okay, good evening. My name is Steve Starr. I have a second home in STR at 321 Panther Court. I would like to thank all of you, Mayor, Council, Planning Commission, and staff, for your dedications toward an ordinance that will hopefully be beneficial to the city, the community, and STR owners. I would like to extend a special thank you to Council members Nakai and Ott for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me at length about this ordinance. My wife and I purchased our home in April 2020 at the start of the pandemic with the idea of possibly STRing someday. We enjoyed the home for 2 years, and now we're both required to go back to work. My wife is full-time and I'm half-time, but we both have flexibility. We have no intention of selling, and long-term rentals are not an option if we want to come and visit. We started our STR in March of this year, and as reference, I have been here more days than I have STR'd my house. And I just want to go on to say that the 20 total guest days that have been here have been an average of 4.22 guests, averaging 3.85 nights with 1.25 cars, and bringing in $3,644 to the city in lodging and sales tax. This is free money to Woodland Park that would simply not happen if the house sit empty. An additional over $10,000 have been provided in property management, cleaning fees, snow removal, providing income to people who live in the area. We value our home and want to make sure that guests treat it and our neighbors with respect. I believe in good neighbor guidelines, and I have implemented my own, but have not seen the city's latest version. Per 52240, my license may be suspended or revoked by council for violation of code, license terms, or good neighbor guidelines, which good neighbor guidelines are established by the city manager and or their designee and updated from time to time. Do the good neighbor guidelines essentially become law? I agree there should be guidelines, but guidelines should not become law. Therefore, I ask violations against guidelines be removed from the ordinance, or if a guideline needs to become law, then it should be in this ordinance. I had thought that perhaps the city could produce a good neighbor guidelines graphic that could be printed by STR owners and made available to STR guests to read when they arrive. This ensures guests see what Woodland Park is requesting of them during their stay, and everyone is being told the same thing. This could include penalties for feeding wildlife, a website to check current fire bans, etc. Then moving on to licensing limitations requirements, 52230, where a designated local contact person must be available 24/7. Who will be able to obtain this information? Is it my neighbor, or is it code enforcement? Is it police? How is a complaint handled? Form, online, hotline, police, code enforcement. STRs may have neighbors that may be looking at every opportunity to get rid of nearby STRs through trivial complaints. Is there STR owner protection from such neighbors? No more than, I said one violation, but now y'all have gone to two.
And Steve, I hate to interrupt you, but your time is up.
Okay, can I do in summary? One paragraph? Well, in summary, a lot of unknowns as to how this will be implemented, but good neighbor guidelines are very good as guidelines, not law. I don't agree STR owners should be held to a stricter code than non-STR neighbors or violations that do not agree with how violations are handled with other businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
And just before we go to break, we have Mary on deck and then Jeremy Lyons.
Jeremy. Okay,
Mayor, how many do we have left? How many more public comment do we have?
I don't know.
About 20.
We need a break.
Okay, come back at 9:10. Got 5 minutes.
Or totally. Give everybody.
It's
time to think
recording?
about it, And then when it comes to the final
Okay.
vote,
All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get back to this meeting.
fight over there.
And Suzanne, I'm gonna go ahead and let you.
But your line.
Yes, so we have Mary Sikowski and Jeremy Lyons is on deck.
We had a vote.
Okay, council, we've got someone at the podium.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mary Sikowski and I live at 3330 Regent Drive. Regarding the ordinance as presented tonight, I do want to thank our elected council members for rolling back the discussion on tighter bans and restrictions to the original ordinance that is closer to being workable. It's a mess right now, but it was closer to being workable earlier this evening. It's encouraging to see some on our council stand up for freedoms and property ownership, and I pray those freedoms will prevail. Short-term rentals are no different from long-term rentals, as they both generate revenue from a dwelling or residence, defined in our city's municipal code as a building or structure used in whole or in part for human habitation. Rentals are widely accepted as appropriate use in residential zones because the use does not vary from this definition or other similar definitions in our code. People live there as occupants of a dwelling unit, and a room is not a dwelling unit. Most STR owners want to be good neighbors and promote peace and enjoyment within the neighborhood. The permitting process in this ordinance is a great start to organizing the promotion of a healthy relationship between all home occupants within our city's neighborhoods. There is no need to enact a new ordinance on this use except for the purpose of promoting accountability to adhere to ordinances already in place, required tax remittance, and to define the existence of STRs and their business operators as presented. To Mayor LaBar's point, it is ludicrous to suggest that all of the lodging tax revenue be returned to all the STR owners. Let's continue as we have for almost a century in Woodland Park to be a welcoming place for those to live and enjoy their home for any chosen period of time. Let's treat all tax-paying homeowners, primary, secondary, or vacation owners the same in this ordinance. Do not adopt any amendments to further restrict the rights of property owners to use their own discretion when renting their home. Government does not grant rights, our Creator does. Laws don't give you rights, they take them away. No harm is being caused in the community to cause action to legislate these rights away. I urge our city council to maintain these rights by amending this ordinance to accountability measures only. This is a logical step for our community and the appropriate path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, we have Jeremy Lyons and John Bradley on deck.
Hey, good evening. I'm Jeremy Lyons, 1140 Pine Ridge Road right here in Woodland Park. So Mayor LaBar, city council members, hey, I want to thank you for all of your efforts so far to uphold the beneficial items in the original 1431 ordinance. Now, I love Woodland Park. And one of my favorite things to do here is to go on long jogs around the city. And I've noticed that several big, beautiful houses that for the most part, they just sit empty. Now, I'm sure they are owned by some good Americans and some hardworking families, but they only visit this town for a couple weeks out of the year. So I'm curious if city council was to develop an ordinance that would better use that vacant house for the other 11 and a half months out of the year. Would you consider that? I hope not. Because that government overreach on private property would be egregious. Now, I've also heard that Aspen, hey, it's a pretty nice place to live. And I'd like to be up there sometime, but quite honestly, I can't afford it. So I'd like to kind of talk to Michael here and just see if there's any way that we could get part of the city budget to help me over the hump and get me into a place up there in Aspen. I don't think we would consider that. Why? Because it's the improper use of taxpayers' money. So why is it that we would consider the government overreach to restrict some of the homeowners here to solve some of the housing issues that we have in this town? It seems to me that the big difference here between short-term rentals and long-term rentals is somewhere around this 29, 30, 31 magical day mark, where 31 days and greater is fine, but 30 days and less, and there's a problem. So if a long-term rental is fine, and it also has the potential to generate a profit Doesn't that make it a business? So then where do we go from there? We're gonna ban all the rentals in this town? We're gonna make it an elitist to where if you want to live in Woodland Park, you have to have the financial resources to buy a home. I don't think that's good. All right, and so to continue down that path, like, is the city would be losing out on the lodging and the sales tax from a long-term rental. So the city budget is losing out. I think as far as an STR being a business, the business aspect takes place in my home office, which I report to the IRS. So I ask you not to let the government look into anyone's home as far as free enterprise or the entrepreneurial spirit that takes place in any of our houses. So it seems to me that there is a special interest group trying to force your hand into this government overreach. And I encourage you, don't let that happen. Do not let this government intrusion be part of your legacy as a council member. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, we have Mr. John Bradley and then Harry Roxick. I hope I'm saying that correct.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm John Bradley. I've been a resident of Teller County since 2004. Currently reside in Divide, Colorado, but I do own a property at 419 South Willow, which is an STR. I purchased that after it had been run down. We revamped it, brought it up to very nice standards, and have been working with my local community, which I call my neighbors there, to make sure that property is at the top notch. I have owned other real estate in Woodland Park, which were long-term. And I can tell you when we rent long-term, those residents aren't as nice to the property. They don't keep it up as well as they should, even though they're supposed to. But because of the short-term rental we have now, we're there constantly, once a week, maintaining it, keeping it up, as opposed to a long-term renter not being able to do that. I do find it quite encouraging when I heard Councilman Neal's amendments to the provisions that have been put forth or that are there. They were answering a lot of questions that I had before, the question that were out there before. So thank you very much, Councilmember Neal. I know you guys have a lot in front of you because now you've got contradicting information that's going forward. I can't say I totally agree with some of your provisions that you have put in the sub amendments that are there, but I do appreciate you putting in that you're covering those people who already have long-term, or I'm sorry, short-term rentals already, which is very helpful. So you're taking that into consideration. I know you're struggling with the fact of these are what's already been in the ordinances. You're walking through them, trying to find the letter of the law, but to the mayor's point, there's a very vague area in there that you need a lot more legal counsel on trying to understand what is used, what isn't used, what's provisional and what's not provisional. So again, I thank you for working through this and having public comments like you do now and allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Okay, I have Harry Roxick. If you're online, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll move on, Harry. We have Francis Sinnell, and then we have Al Bungie on deck. Ms. Sinnell, are you there? Okay, Ms. Sinnell, Sarah's ready. Okay, Ms. Sinnell, you can go ahead. Ms. Sinnell, she's unmuted.
Yeah, okay. I think I've got it. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. There's a significant faction and golly gee, we wouldn't know it by the way that the voting is gone that is in favor of STRs, because guess what? They're going to make money off of this. Oh, by the way, my name is Frances Sennell, and I've been a resident of Woodland Park for 12 and a half years. I am against STRs because of what they do to our community and how they violate our comprehensive plan and what the reason that most of us moved up to the community in the first place. But that's not why I'm here to speak. I'm here to speak because Council Member Neal, Mayor Pro Tem Case, and Mayor LaBarre all serve to make money off of these STRs. Council Member Neal filed an application for his house to be an STR because he regrets moving here. And Mayor Pro Tem Case, if you think it's funny, Mayor LaBarre, then go ahead and laugh. But you work with Case, and the two of you have admitted that you have STRs that go through your office. When you have a conflict of interest like that, you have broken the law and you are subject to fines and imprisonment. And if you don't recuse yourself as you're supposed to, and Mayor, you know very well that when you have to recuse yourself, even if it is for your father-in-law's workings, you have to take care of it. We need a city council who is going to agree to actually honor the oaths that they have taken and to follow the law. And that's not what's going on here. When you have a conflict of interest, you don't have to get found out and then have somebody point a finger at you. You have an affirmative duty to come forward and say what your conflict of interest is. And the three of you have those conflicts of interest and they are monetary. But they don't have to even apply to you. It could be a family member, a business associate, something else that would make it inappropriate or give it the appearance of impropriety. You are not even allowed, when you have a conflict of interest, to participate in any of these discussions, much less take any votes. You are not fit to serve our fair city when you take the position that you are above the law. You do not have to obey Colorado law, which you do, and you took an oath to do so. But you're not fit to serve if you don't recuse yourself as you're supposed to. And recusing yourself is not a dishonorable thing. It is coming forward in honor, saying that I cannot participate in this process because I have something to gain or something to lose. But in this case, the three of you have something to gain, and it's lining your pockets. And all of the STR owners that I've heard from, I just wanted to jump in with this. Did none of you consult a lawyer to find out if your uses were permitted? There are so many of you, whether you're in state, out of state, in the county, you own 2 or 3 houses in the county. Did not one of you consult a lawyer to find out if this is permitted use? Well, then shame on you. And if you can't live within your means in terms of what you've purchased to use for STRs, then too bad. I could use my home as an STR, but guess what? My integrity and the character of my neighborhood mean more to me. But apparently, at least these 3 city council members would rather trade in their integrity and what they have vowed in their oaths.
Your time is up. Thank you.
You're a disgrace.
Jeff, if you'd like to address the conflict of interest, you're welcome to.
Not appropriate because we haven't been able to address anything else from any of the other citizens, so not sure why we would address that.
I mean, we usually don't respond to the citizens. We listen to them, so you don't have to defend that.
We don't have to.
I'll respond if my client asks me to respond.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Not responding.
Okay, with Al Bungie. Are you on Zoom, Al? Okay, Shauna Smith with Nathan on deck.
Thank you, council members and honorable mayor. I just appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of small business owners that will be affected by the limitation of STR permits and slow elimination of STR permits in the future. I have a small SDR assistance company that managed 13 properties in and out of the city. And in the last 3 years, we've hired over 34 local mothers, including myself, to help clean and maintain homes and paid them over $180,000 to provide for their families. These jobs help mothers have an avenue to stay with their young children and still bring home a paycheck that they desperately needed to supplement their family income. These mothers include older mothers that help grandchildren supplement their own retirement and single mothers with this being their only income. Not only do I employ mothers, but also locally employ service workers, 2 handymen, 2 snowplow services, multiple plumbers, septic services, 2 internet companies, a carpenter, 2 tree services, 2 contractors, a hot tub maintenance man, an appliance man, a locksmith, 2 local firewood suppliers, and 2 electricians. And I'm sure I'm missing someone. Trinity Care, actually, my good friends have also owner a short-term rental service company, have given me stats of employees of 56 employees and have paid over $280K to supply for their families as well. As these people spend their paychecks here in Woodland Park, we buy groceries, we go out to dinner, we pay taxes, we work hard to enjoy a standard of living here. What a blessing companies like this help so many Woodland Park and Teller County citizens. What a loss to all short-term rental small business owners like I, providing if they are slowly pushed out of the opportunity to stay and grow and contribute to this wonderful little town. Needless to say, what a loss to all the restaurants, retail owners, and activity businesses that this will also affect. I love this town. Since moving here in 2012, I've met incredible people and become a part of a community. As a short-term service business owner, I take pride that I'm serving Woodland Park tourist industry by providing excellent service to the community and my neighbors. My standards are high. All the neighbors, each surrounding my STR, have my number, and I check on them regularly. If I get called about an issue at a house, the renters get a $350 fine. I put local restaurants and activities in each home to help spend their money and support local businesses. I provide information how to implement safe fire practices, as well as send out a notification of fire bans. I set quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. and there are no events bigger than the capacity of sleeping at each home. I set parking limits, and I love the community. I take pride in it. There is an increased trend over the last 3 years based on bookings that we are a very attractive destination. We have a history of tourism here. In the early 1800s, the income was tourism and mining, and I'm proud that I contribute to this legacy. There are many local STR business owners that feel the same way as I do. Woodland Park has the opportunity to be a leader and example from other towns on how to work together to enhance tourism opportunities and bring additional revenue to the city and local businesses. Let's kindly, respectively work together to provide all of our needs in this city. Let's coexist. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna.
Okay, we have Nathan and then we have Angie King on deck.
Good evening. My name is Nathan. I live in Yoder out east. I'm a Flatlander. I became part of the non-owner occupied short-term rental pandemic not too long ago. And I have 6 kids, and this has given me an opportunity to provide a lot more for them. And I plan to keep building up on that. It's wild to me. The effort to change the code is not as strong as the effort to take away a citizen's right to build wealth off of his property. And why are you doing that? One of the arguments is that families feel unsafe with the neighbors, and this may be an outdated concept, but sacrificing other people's freedoms for other people's safety will give you neither freedom or safety.
Thank you, Nathan.
Okay, next we have Angie King. Okay, Angie.
Hello.
You can go ahead, Angie.
Good evening. My name is Angie Kane. I own a second home with my husband at 407 Woodland Avenue. My family and I began visiting Woodland Park a few years ago when friends have family that live there and told us about it. It sounded like a place that we would want to visit. Smaller town, restaurant, shops, hiking, reservoirs, mountains, all the things that we like to do. First, we stayed in short-term rental units when we came. And as always, they were clean, tidy, well kept. They always had restaurant menus, info on local hikes and attractions, ways to spend money in the community. As a family, we really enjoy staying in a short-term rental unit versus a hotel. We're able to dine there together, rest there together, have quality time there together. So over time, we decided we wanted to have a place of our own in Woodland Park, a home that we could stay in and live in and continue to bring our children to regularly, a second home. We looked at houses for sale and we ended up buying 2 small lots in the urban residential zone, and we were thrilled. We continued to visit as we did interviews of local builders. We very quickly decided that we wanted to support our new community. We hired all the things that we had control of local. We had Woodland Park residents and businesses who built our house for us. Our contractor, his family, his team, they live there in Woodland Park. Our masonry, our electrician, our plumber, we bought local wood, we bought local rock, local stone from all the local suppliers. We even have a local bank and banker, and we bought some local art at the OG gallery. We love spending our time there. The pandemic changed a lot of things, and a big one was the cost of building materials. And that's when we were building. So we still wanted this for us. We are hardworking Americans, and we just had this dream to be able to have a mountain home. So we decided to still build. We loved the team and the whole process of it. And we decided early on during our build that to reduce financial stress on our family caused by the pandemic, we would work to rent out our home short-term when we weren't there. This motivated us to utilize, local cleaning company, local landscape. We have a local snow removal person. And so far, we have stayed in our home every month that it has been built, and we've been there. So we've only had a few guests, actually, since the completion of our home earlier this year. All of our guests that we have hosted have been peaceful, tidy, appreciative. We send them rules on info, parking, disclose that we have security cameras. We know our neighbors. We are regular people. I think it was Arnie and Miss Snell that mentioned that, we're investors. We're going to be making money. We're investors. We're going to make it big. No, we're just regular people that love coming to Woodland Park. And
Angie, I hate to interrupt you, but your time is up.
Okay. And my final word on that is just that, if we aren't short-term renting in our home, we have no plans to long-term rental it, because that would defeat the purpose of our second home. We wouldn't get to be there. And there are several regular people like us that have the same thing going on. And so we're not contributing to any housing crisis. You wouldn't have our home as a primary residence.
Thank you, Angie.
Empty. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
So Mayor, we have Mr. Broxick, who I called earlier and
Yes.
he couldn't get on. He drove all the way down. So
Oh,
he's here.
very good.
Mr. Perry, and then we have on deck, we have Bradley Cotan. Sir.
Thank you very much for addressing these issues that we face in our community. I think the major question is, what kind of community do we want to have? Do we want to be the rental city for Colorado Springs, for Denver, for other parts of the country? Or do we want to have neighbors and neighborhoods? And I think healthy neighborhoods make healthy communities, and healthy communities make healthy people. And I think it's to our advantage to have some control over short-term rentals in our community. In our neighborhood, we have what we think is a well-run STR. But this summer, in their backyard, they lit a bonfire, a campfire. And an alert neighbor saw what was happening, called the police, and the police came and they put the fire out. They said they didn't know that there was a fire ban. Did they know and didn't care, or did they not know because it didn't read the material that was given to them? We were thinking of the 700 homes that burned near Boulder as we thought about this situation in our neighborhood this summer. Across our neighborhood, 2 years ago, we had a similar situation, only different. People rented their house for a short term, 30 days or less. And as people do when they go on vacation, they had a good time. They weren't noisy on their back deck, but they were out there until midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they were just having a good time. The next day, they left their dogs in the fenced-in area. So the dogs barked all day. Why does our neighborhood have to put up with those kinds of situations? It isn't fair to our neighborhood, to the people who live here, and it isn't healthy. Our neighborhood has children who walk to school. Will the STRs guarantee that there are no pedophiles that they rent to? Or do we let our children take a chance on who rents those STRs? I think it's unhealthy for our neighborhood to have any STRs in our neighborhood. From an economic standpoint, good neighbors support the local economy in a way that I don't think the STRs would do. I would encourage you to continue with your work on the STR and help our community be a safe and a healthy community for the people who bought their homes here and who live here and live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
We have Bradley Coton. Okay, we'll move on. I have Linda Martin, and then I'm going to butcher this name. Tai Long. Thank you. Thank you. So we have Linda next. So you're on deck.
Linda Martin, Woodland Park, Colorado. My family has been a resident or had a residence here since 1984. We were one of the first homes built on Sun Valley Drive when it was still a dirt road. We have covenants that say we don't get STRs. Our builder, Will Brown, may he rest in peace. He's probably turning in his right now because of these STRs trying to come in here and take over Woodland Park. This young man over here just asked, what kind of neighborhood do we want to live in? When my sister built her home in 1984, she was not building a home to be next to a hotel or a motel. She was building a home to be in a residential area that had neighbors with kids, with family, with grandparents coming to visit. She didn't want to hear about trafficking, child trafficking in her neighborhood because she didn't know who her neighbor was. She didn't want to hear about fentanyl in her neighborhood because she didn't know where her neighbors were. I retired from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. One of the biggest things they told us, when you live in a neighborhood, know who your neighbors are. You want safety? Don't live next to a motel. Know what cars your neighbors drive. I know that my neighbor is home by 6:30 every night, and she appreciates when I call and say, are you guys okay? I don't see your car there. It's 10 o'clock. She appreciates that because we're neighbors. We're not renters. How did I afford the house here? My sister worked her goddamn butt off so that she could afford to live in Woodland Park because this was the destination. Now we have all these people. We have Kelly Case, who 2 meetings ago said we have to allow STRs in this town because they make it equitable. How many city employees, just some minor city employee who does all the work for the managers, can afford 2 homes in Woodland Park? One to live in and one to STR. She probably can't afford a $400 STR to redo and to put a hot tub into? How many police officers are buying STRs so that they can subsidize their measly income with money from an STR? Probably not many, because they can't even afford to live up here. I get angry because you guys are trying to ruin my city. I've worked hard to live here. I've worked jobs driving down the pass every day so that I could live in Woodland Park. And now we're becoming a laughing stock because so many people have started their speech up here saying, I love Woodland Park,
Time is getting
Miss
close.
Martin.
Just like.
but I live somewhere else. But I have my STR in Woodland Park. By the way, I did receive the list of STRs today, a current list. It's much shorter than the one I received 2 weeks ago. Addresses are on there that weren't on there 2 weeks ago.
Miss Martin, I hate to interrupt you, but your time is up.
One last minute, because I think this is imperative. If you guys are making decisions on capping things, you need to know what numbers you're capping. You need to know where your STRs are, and you need to know how many you have, because right now you're not tracking it right, because the number isn't going to change like that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And on deck, we have Susie Bradley.
Okay.
You're good. I just can't, can you please say your name for me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is T Long.
Thank
I
you.
don't, do I get to continue?
Yes.
Okay.
She just likes to tell me who's in line behind the
Okay, I got
speaker.
you. Okay, my name is T Long. This is my first council meeting ever. As you can tell, I have no idea what I'm into. Um, I don't live here. I'm not a resident of Woodland Park, but I'm here represent my parents who sold their home in Houston to come here for their retirement. Unfortunately, they can't be here all the time, all year round, because they have to fly back to Vietnam to take care of my grandma, who's 88 years old. So in able for them to afford their retirement house here, we say, why don't we rent it out, short term? Because they want to live here eventually. They come here 5-6 months a year. And because of my grandma condition, they don't know their schedule. So we can't do long term, or, like we can't sacrifice their house just because the city doesn't allow short-term rental, even though we go through everything to get the permit and decide to commit with a very large mortgage. At their age, they're working part-time, and I would hate to see them have to go back to full-time working 2 jobs just to afford the mortgage that, that is overwhelmed. And I help them manage everything. I have a sister who lives in Colorado Springs, take a trip here every weekend to make sure everything is in control. I vet my guests very carefully. I test their ID, who's on the reservation. I have noise monitor inside the house so I can know whenever there's loud noise happen, I text them right away. Trust me, as a host and as the owner, we value our property a lot more, and it would hurt us to see guests coming over and party. And I have a question about the complaint three strike, because how do you manage the complaint? Like, how do you verify if it's a real complaint, or is that just, a neighbor who doesn't want a short-term rental live in them? Because I can see people who doesn't like them just complain. And what if I have evidence say that, oh, my noise detector say there was no noise during that time? Who would you believe? And where does these cross the line? And 3 strike, after 3 strike, you're gonna provoke the license, and what's gonna happen? Like, after 3 strike, can we go with a fine and after a certain fine, okay, you are out? Because to me, 3 strike for a whole year, that still sound very unreasonable when you don't know how to verify these complaints. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, T.
Okay, we have Susie Bradley and Mackenzie is on deck.
Do we have more after Mackenzie?
We do. We have 1, 2, 3 more.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, council members, mayor, and community of Woodland Park. My name's Susie Bradley. My husband Dan and I live on 100 Mills Ranch Road here in Woodland Park. We own a second home that we short-term, long-term offer for housing for friends and family and those in need. We own Ground Control Inc. in Woodland Park and Essentially Fit here, and we serve here in the community for the last 16 years. I want to remind everyone that we have this sweet town historically has been a mining town, a destination town, a pass-through town where homeowners offer room and board for passerbys and a beautiful place to explore. We are a blended community as well as we should be. We don't have to define what we are. We're a blended community for many needs. STRs are not new and not an illegal invasion. This city is not wrong in issuing their licenses to us. That was a trusted agreement and a green light to serve our community. From what I understand, there have only been 3 complaints, 3, in the last 2 years regarding STR noise violations. In 2 years, 3 complaints. So my question is, where's your data? Where's your data? Where's the proof that we are a menace historically to this town? How are we a burden in society? How are we being slowly eliminated by your personal agendas, frankly? How are we factually bringing down the natural flow of offering alternative services to those who come to this community to experience our town? We have to remember we are a free society of choices and options. Not everyone wants to stay in a hotel. Not everyone wants to stay in a lodge. We can choose our experiences because we are a free society. Millions choose Airbnbs and VRBOs. We are owners and families just trying to survive and thrive, spending thousands to beautify our homes. And if you guys can provide that specific data, I know you're talking about it. I would love for you to find that data for us. Please let us know how we are a menace to society. We're actually elevating property values. We operate on high standards and run on reviews only. Bad reviews, we're out. Our business and our family dwelling is gone. We have city ordinances in place already to be good neighbors, as well as primary owners, long-term owners as well. We have a responsibility to comply with living well in our community. The only difference between STRs and LTRs is duration, period. It's a residential transaction for dwelling and living. We should be treated as the same as them, and as fact, we hold a higher standard, as many have said here, to beautify our homes for neighborhood respect. We're in our houses every 2 to 30 days, beautifying that. Now, let us show you how we can elevate this town. Trust us. So my point is, and I have 10 seconds here, we appreciate the Planning Commission's work, but I asked to remove the addendum and strike this and kill 1431 completely. It's a Pandora's box for more control, manipulation, and government overreach. This is convoluted and we can make it very simple. Trust us to run our homes well. All 1431 does is very tedious and convoluted. It shows us that a few people want to provoke massive restrictions and government overreach. And I think it's really unacceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you. We have Mackenzie and then Lydia on deck.
Hey everyone, thank you for staying late tonight. Really appreciate it. My name is Mackenzie Leach and I have been blessed to be a resident of Woodland Park for the last 11 years. I became a solo mama of my beautiful baby girl who's gonna be 8 tomorrow, about 5 years ago. And I went from being able to have a full-time job to now having 4 jobs because I am on a solo income here in Teller County, Woodland Park. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to actually have the short-term rentals as one of my jobs, because being 50-50 custody with my daughter's father, I don't get to see her. I have her half the time now. And with that, the last thing I want to do is then go and put her in daycare at a job that won't let me have her with me. And so I'm so blessed to be able to have her with me when I go to these awesome jobs. I work for amazing people. And as a housekeeper, when I go into those rentals, as soon as the guests have left, they leave it immaculate. I can maybe say 2 times where there was extra crumbs on the stove or maybe a spill in the refrigerator that I had to clean up extra afterwards. These people who come to our town, they value it and respect it, just like I do. And the owners, if you would just drive around and see a lot of the owners of these beautiful homes, I can't even tell you the pride that they take in their homes, from their front yards to their backyards to the inside of their homes, because they want to make it lovely for those people who get to come and see it. With that being said, if you choose to make any restrictions to this, I can definitely tell you it's going to create a lot more hardship for me and my daughter. And this is a place that we do call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
We have Lydia. Okay, Lydia must have left. She signed up in person. Then we have Jerry Penland. Let me pause your time for a minute. I'm going to reset Jerry's time out of respect for him.
Thank you. Jerry, go ahead.
My name is Jerry Penland. I live on Masters Drive here in Woodland Park. You'd be glad to know that because of the comments tonight, I've eliminated 2/3 of what I was going to say. On the one hand, my opinion, we violated our zone districts in the residential areas of our approved planned unit developments approved by the city for certain actions and activities and residences and family-owned houses. We need to stop doing that. We need to bring back the integrity of the zone districts we bought into and we live in. That's on one hand. On the other hand, we don't really want to financially destroy our short-term rental friends and neighbors who made financial decisions by relying on a city-issued short-term rental lodging business license that I consider illegal, even though that's probably not the right term, but that's my opinion. But we did it. So here we are. What do we do now? We already have some common ground to work from. It's not like this anymore, like it was. Some people wanted a total ban. Some people I talked to wanted to ban every single short-term rental anywhere in Woodland Park. Ban them all. Some wanted the Wild Wild West. Let them go everywhere. No restrictions whatsoever. But we have some common ground that we heard tonight, and we've been hearing all the time. Practically everybody is okay with allowing homeowner occupied STRs for the city. Everybody that talked tonight that has a homeowner occupied STR, they will not be impacted with anything I've heard tonight. Practically everybody is okay with allowing STRs in commercial downtown areas. I didn't hear a single word tonight that would ban those STRs from those areas. Current STRs are okay. I didn't hear a single word from anybody up here that said you want to ban and not allow current owners to keep operating their STRs. Everybody that spoke tonight that said, oh my God, it's going to be a huge financial risk if I lose my short-term rental. Didn't hear a single word that says that's going to happen. So we have a great start to develop something that works for everybody. I know we have the collective brain power here in Woodland Park to find a compromise. A compromise that will not impact our current STR licensed businesses and will also give us back our family-friendly, not transient neighborhoods over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, our final speaker is on Zoom and it's Stephanie Alfieri. So Stephanie, you can join us. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Might want to talk a little bit louder.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, hello all. So glad to see you. Didn't necessarily to expect to be back here, but this issue has caused me to come forward and speak again. Let me be clear on the front end. I am opposed to a ban on STRs whatsoever. However, the reason I'm speaking tonight is because, surprisingly enough, I absolutely agree with Marie Snell. There is some serious conflicts of interest that we have going on this council. In April of this year, many of you supported restrictions to our municipal code regarding conflicts of interest. And I will quote, "It is the intent of the city to establish and enforce a policy which ensures that its elected officials are independent, impartial, and responsible to the citizens they serve and represent. Elected officials should have a general understanding of the city views regarding situations which create or involve conflicts of interest or the appearance of impropriety." We further clarified that because the terminology was loose regarding immediate family and what that meant. The citizens voted, many of you supported it, and the municipal code now reads that immediate family members include husband and father-in-laws. So although me and Marie Snell have agreed on almost nothing since I've become aware of her and she's become aware of me, we agree on this. Even though we're diametrically opposed on this issue, there are a number of you on council that have a clear conflict of interest in this topic that should have recused yourself and have not, particularly Council Member Labar. Your father-in-law has a clear conflict of interest and a substantial negative impact if the ban on STRs is approved. And you sitting up there and continuing on in this discussion is a dereliction of your duty. I don't care where you sit on the issue. Quite honestly, you and I agree on this issue. We want no ban on STRs. I absolutely support personal property rights 100%. But that does not circumvent the idea that you should not be involved in an issue that our code says you have a clear conflict of interest in. You should have recused yourself. I'm sorry.
Okay. So we have nobody else signed up. There's nobody else on Zoom.
I see a hand in the audience. It's okay.
Are you taking someone that's not signed up?
It's fine.
Okay.
Good evening, council. Mike Nakai, Woodland Park. I think the timing here is appropriate. You guys have discussed conflict of interest many times. You guys know that it's a person, at the end of the day, it's a personal decision.
for each of you, and you have to live with the consequences. Personally, I think Stephanie bringing up a conflict of interest is what we call in Texas, the pot calling the kettle black. All right, so let me move on. My last, because of that, I want to have my last point. I'm going to bring it up first. I don't want you guys to let this tear you apart. It was not that long ago in this chamber that every single council meeting was a cat fight. 3-3 votes on everything, arguments contentious. I know you guys get along better than that. Let's not let just these political, personal differences on how to solve a problem become personal. Right? It's easy to do. We all do it. Okay. And you may get upset with each other one day, call them up the next day and make up. Okay. Because I know you guys can do that. Right. Reach out to each other, seek each other out, find this middle ground somewhere. Okay. I have, excuse me, some points that I've listened to this for the last year, and I want to give you some takeaways. In the table header, I'm reasonably familiar with the code, and I have to agree with some of you that have stated this up there. An 1809-090, the header of the use table basically states permitted uses shall be listed in this table. And otherwise, and Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if it ain't listed, it ain't allowed, because permitted uses shall be listed in the table. So it's not a matter of whether these are illegal, it's a matter of whether they're permitted. Was it a mistake for the city to issue a business license to a non-permitted use? Yes. In my opinion, it is the root cause of this conundrum we are in today. Okay, it was a mistake. You guys sat here a couple of months ago fairly upset because of a mistake of prior councils, prior attorneys, prior staff making an agreement with Karis 10 years ago that you had to swallow 10 years later. Okay, so sometimes we make mistakes. Across this country, we see individuals in governments ignoring local rules, local ordinances, local laws. Let's not be that. Let's respect our laws and those who came before us. Now, the other thing I heard is the majority of responsible STR owners that we have in this community. They seem to want to do it right. They understand that it's a business, and if they run it like poorly, they're not going to get the return that they're looking for. I'm also glad to hear that you have allowed owner occupied without restrictions. That seems to be a consensus.
Mike, I hate to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but time's up.
Okay, alrighty. Some of you struggle with your ideology versus what you think the citizens want. I see that, I know that. Work together and try to find that common ground. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor LaBarre, there was just one other person that had their hand up. And I'm gonna see if he's there. I just lost my internet connection. His name's Tim Taylor. So Tim, if you want to speak, can you let Sarah know? Okay, and then the other final thing I want to do is make sure none of these people that we called before aren't back online.
Okay.
So we have Bradley Coton. If you'd like to speak, Sarah, you have to look. I don't have an internet connection.
Tim's hand is up now.
Tim's hand. Okay, so let's. let
Yeah,
Tim-
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, the points that have been made by people already, both Maria and Stephanie, Ms. Martin, but I think Jerry Penland summed it up really well. We live in a neighborhood, however, we don't want to penalize STRs that are already here. And I do believe that we can work through this and find a common ground for everybody. So I'm not going to take any more time. A lot of good points have been made, and hopefully we can get this resolved before too long.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, and then the final folks are Bradley Cotan, Al Bungie, and Rick Roberts. It's your last call, gentlemen. Okay, I think we can conclude.
Very good. All right, so now we have item yeah, I'm so tired, I can't even say it. 8B. So we're gonna have to look at that. And that is for extending the moratorium, and Jeff, that's
Correct. And council members, you're familiar with this issue. The current moratorium goes to December 15th of this year. The measure before you would extend the moratorium to June 24th, 2023. But of course, the moratorium goes away as soon as you approve the ordinance and provide a structure for going forward. So it doesn't mean we're automatic, but we're inevitably going to that day.
right. Council, any comments or discussion on that, Adam?
I have a question for you, Jeff. Because the moratorium was put in place to put a stop to the whole short-term rental question until it's resolved by ordinance.
Mhm.
If we were to extend it beyond December 31st, sorry.
December 15th.
December 15th.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm by implication, I mean the licenses, that's where really the crux of the issue is. If we extend it past December 15th, that means we then step into, unless we resolve this in the last 2 weeks of the year. It puts us in a position where we have to decide, are we going to reissue licenses? And we haven't decided what we're doing. So how do you legally guard the tone that we're not saying this is a go-ahead in any way other than for us to continue this discussion to come to a resolution? How do we navigate that? Because it's going to change as of December 31st.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Legally, up until now, and some people have said it, that the city done the right thing in issuing licenses for short-term rentals. That question's before us right now. Now, if we go ahead and say, yes, we're going to issue licenses, are we putting ourselves in a legal situation where you put a moratorium and you issued licenses before you settled it? Right, it's the renewals.
It's the renewal, yeah.
Oh,
Why don't you explain it? I mean, you don't want to approve the moratorium extension?
What I think, Robert, excuse me if I could, I think I know what Robert's asking, because business licenses expire, all of them, whether it's a grocery store, a convenience store, they all expire December 31st. And so if we extend the moratorium again, whether, I know it's the 15th, but then we're extending that and people need to renew their new licenses for a January 1 license. So we've got all these licenses out there that, I mean, are we going to continue them until we decide? Or will they be allowed to renew January 1 because that's when all business licenses are due? Is that it, Robert?
Yes, council member. That's right. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to catch on, but I get it now.
Why don't you lay this over? We'll figure out an answer by the next meeting.
Okay.
This is first reading.
I don't have an answer yet.
And we don't have to have a decision today about this anyway.
Well, it's initial posting, so we can
Yeah.
just move it forward and discuss it, or we can table it and discuss it.
I
move
move
we-
to table it till the
I'll second the
attorneys can
motion.
give us a. Yeah.
I'll second that motion to table.
Remember, our time frame is though, with an ordinance, we need an initial posting and a public hearing, and then it's 7 days after, if it's approved, that it's effective. Does that get us done before the 15th of December?
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
December
that- you
1st.
don't have
potentially.
some
Yes,
margin for error.
Actually, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you for answering that.
It's really just a legal question to, yeah, it's a good question. Vote?
My question is, are you moving to table it to the next meeting?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, date certain, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Zuluaga,
Yes.
Labar,
Yes.
Case,
Yes.
Connors,
Yes.
Nakai,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Ott.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Item 9, public hearings, none. 10, new business, none. Reports, we made it. I just have a couple items. November 10th, 5 PM to 7 PM, we have the Chamber Fall Business Expo at the Ute Pass Cultural Center. November 11th, 5 PM to 9 PM, we have the Veterans Day celebration at the Ute Pass Cultural Center, and that's hosted by the American Legion. And November 14th, from 5:30 to 6:30 PM, we have the Newmont, Cripple Creek and Victor Community Open House at the Ute Pass Cultural Center. And then just briefly, I know Kelly addressed her conflict of interest at the beginning of the last meeting. I have no conflict of interest on this topic, so I don't know where it's coming from. My father-in-law doesn't own any STRs. I don't own any. My husband doesn't own any. I don't have any. I have no real estate clients. I am a real estate agent for myself and my husband. I have no clients. Nobody I know is buying an STR that I'm working for because nope, I don't work for anyone. I just work for me. I don't work with Kelly. She's not my real estate partner, and Keller Williams is my umbrella office, but I have nothing to do with it. I don't even have an office space there. So can't figure out where this whole conflict of interest thing is coming from. I usually recuse myself, even though I legally don't have to, if I know that it's an issue with my father-in-law, but he doesn't own any STRs, so I don't get where any of this is coming from. So I just want to address that. I have no idea. So, and I'm surprised. So anyhow, Councilmember Connors.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate what the mayor said about Veterans Day on the 11th of November with the Ute Pass Veterans Dinner starting at 1700. The veterans are also doing selling poppies at City Market from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Nakai. Oh,
I have-
Robert, what, hang on.
I have nothing.
On the 11th as well?
Yeah, the 11th. I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilmember Nakai was nothing? Okay, Councilmember Neal.
Before I go into my DDA liaison, along with yours, I would like to release the city attorney from client-attorney privilege. And I ask that you share with the city and the council members the advice that you provided to me regarding whether I had a conflict of interest and what actions I had to take to remove any potential conflict of interest, please.
You contacted me and asked what steps you might take to avoid a conflict of interest and suggested divesting yourself of your interest, which you did, which removed any conflict.
Once and for all, I have received that guidance, what to do. I did it. And there was a lie passed around that I had reapplied. I have not. I have honored exactly what the attorney told me I had to do. So I do not have anything different than anyone except for Robert. He's the only one that does not own a house. Everybody else here owns a house. And none of us have a conflict of interest. You're the only one different. We rent. Okay. Okay.
I guess, Rusty, if seeing you've been so transparent, I guess the challenge that people have about your position on this is that your intention is to make your house available for that in the future. you've removed the interest in terms of the application, but can you still be impartial, given the fact that you have that vision for your own property? And I think that's what people are kind of saying. So
I have no vision for my property. I have no, people keep telling me what my wife and I are going to be doing. My wife and I laughed when we heard about it and said, God, I wish we had the crystal ball, what we are going to do. We don't. We have no earthly idea. We're going to pursue everything that a property owner has available to them, starting with looking for an apartment, part-time, somewhere at a lower elevation. I love my house. I have my dream house. I have no desire to sell my house. I plan to be a resident in my house until such time as it's sold.
thanks for clarifying it. I appreciate it.
Okay, on November 1st of 2022, at 7:30, we did assemble here for the monthly DDA meeting. We had a couple house cleaning stuff that I will report. There were some invoices to be paid for our DDA attorney and for our admin assistants. That was all approved for paying. We had no TIFs to vote on. But we did have some very interesting and salient things that I do want to share with you. And it has to do with a phase 1 environmental and VCUP study, which is a requirement. It was done 10 years ago for the Woodland Station property, and it expired a few weeks ago. The DDA approached the developer because the developer had presented what the cost would be in total, which was $10,277.50. And the DDA voted to cost share 50-50 for having that VCUP study renewed. So our total exposure is $5,138.75, which I can report that the DDA attorney yesterday provided the draft to the chairman and myself, and the chairman released the DDA attorney's version to the developer to see if it was mutually acceptable. So that did occur yesterday. The last thing that was pretty interesting is there is a clause in the permitted use of the central business district. There's language in the CBD that requires any mixed use to place residential on the ground floor. That has been a stumbling block for every developer going back. The DDA has voted to pursue, as the owner, removing that clause following the appropriate normal city process, where it would an application would be prepared, presented to the planning commission. They would analyze the logic, the rationale, and render their recommendation to the city council for this city council to vote on whether to remove it or not. It's an ordinance change, so it would have to go through that process. That occurred at this past DDA meeting. So we're trying to do things to remove obstacles to get the Woodland Station developed, as has been vocalized in all of the surveys when we did it for the comprehensive plan, that is a very high priority for the citizens to develop Woodland Station. The DDA board is trying. That concludes my report.
Thanks.
Great. Rusty, can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Rusty, the changing of that agreement, however, is going to make a significant difference in terms of the tax base. The whole idea of downtown development is to develop the business district. You got 29% tax rate, and then you change it to residential. That's not fulfilling to me. Is that really fulfilling what the DDA is?
It's allowing for horizontal mixed use as in the comprehensive plan. It recognizes vertical and horizontal. That clause makes the horizontal mixed use a problem. So that's what's got to be justified to the planning commission, and we have to analyze that also. But they would like to go with a horizontal mixed use. So there's going to be commercial. It would be horizontally versus vertically.
Okay, so you still do commercial at the bottom,
Commercial would be
at the bottom.
on the ground floor,
Correct.
but it might be a entire commercial building here and next over here, a residential. So it's horizontal mixed use in a lot.
As opposed to
Vertical.
doing commercial at the bottom and.
Correct, that's vertical.
Yeah.
And the comprehensive plan says that both, both are supported, but that's not what the code right now says.
Correct, okay.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, it's complex, but thank you for the question. And if there's any confusion there and if somebody wants clarification, raise your hand. Thank you.
Do copy, man.
Back to you.
Do copy, do copy.
Councilmember Ott.
All right, the next Historical Preservation Committee meeting is going to be on 11/7/2022 at 3:30 PM here at City Hall. That's all I have.
All right, Councilmember Zulawaga.
Keep Woodland Park Beautiful has a meeting conflicting with the chamber meeting it's at 5 o'clock on November the 10th upstairs here in the conference room. But it generally only goes an hour, so you could still go over to the Youth Pass Cultures Center. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Case.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share that as I do each month, we haven't had our Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting yet this month, but we will have it next week. But I can report that our recovery rate at the Aquatic Center, which came up earlier during our budget work session, continues to improve, approaching 60%, which is remarkable when you compare with other facilities around the state and around the country that operates. I mean, they just don't make their own way. So they're doing great work over there. Brady is amazing. As you know, he received a prestigious award. And so just kudos to Parks and Rec and Cindy's leadership and Brady's leadership over there. Thanks for the opportunity, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney. All right. City Manager.
Just one thing for tonight, as a thank you for supporting the Salute to American Veterans Rally. Jim Ware and the rally committee wanted to present the council in the city with this poster. And folks are interested, they can come and check it out up here. But just as a little token of their appreciation to this board. So there you go.
Very nice.
That's all I got.
Thank you. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.